So, I was dealing with this total hothead. Qian Xiaolong, a guy who'd literally rather die than say please. His hand was completely shattered, and he desperately needed my help, but asking nicely? Yeah, right. Apparently that was way beneath his dignity. Thank God for Linger, though. She basically threatened to hit him with the ultimate silent treatment. Unless he apologized. The dude turned as red as a tomato, looking like he was straight up about to explode. But finally he dropped to his knees. Beautiful. An absolutely magnificent moment. I grabbed his hand and violently yanked it back into place. And what does this maniac do? He immediately pulls a knife on me. Like, bro, I literally just fixed you. Linger instantly jumped in front of me like a tiny human shield. But once the idiot realized his hand actually worked perfectly. Again, he just stood there looking completely brain-dead. Yeah, you're welcome, by the way. Then I asked him about the tiger. Yep, a literal tiger. Because clearly, my life isn't chaotic enough already. Xiao Long pointed out into the distance, about 400 paces away. I quickly did the math in my head. That's roughly 520 meters between me and an apex predator that could swallow me like a dumpling. I handed all my hunting gear over to Linger and ordered her to head straight back down the mountain. Old man Huang was up there foraging for herbs, and he was walking right into a death trap. Xiao Long called me suicidal, but I just smirked and told him I'd carry that tiger back on my shoulders. Was I bluffing? Maybe. Did it sound badass? Absolutely. Suddenly, Linger caught up to me, wielding a borrowed blade. I asked her if she was seriously not terrified of tigers. She locked eyes with me, dead serious, and said, "As long as you're here, I'm not afraid of anything." Okay, my heart definitely skipped a beat, but I played it smooth and just called her a silly girl. Moments later, we found old man Huang crouched in the brush, giggling like a maniac over some wild ginseng root, like he'd just hit the mega jackpot. But right behind him, creeping out from the shadows, was the most colossal tiger I had ever laid eyes on. Easily 3 meters of pure muscle, weighing at least 700 pounds. Its massive claws dug into the dirt, with its gaze locked onto Huang like he was an afternoon snack. The beast let out a roar so fierce the entire mountain shook. Leaves rained down as the ground violently vibrated. Huang shrieked and instantly collapsed like a wet noodle, while Linger screamed and fell straight onto her butt. Xiao Long was shaking so hard. You could literally hear his teeth rattling. I lined up a headshot and the tiger stumbled, utterly shocked that its dinner plans just got ruined. I let another one fly, but this furry tank literally dodged midair. Like, a 700-pound beast doing gymnastics? Yeah, that's just cheating. And now it was mad. Like personally offended level of mad. It locked eyes with me and let out a roar so loud. I'm pretty sure my eardrums just filed for divorce, before charging straight at me, like a striped freight train on steroids. I managed to nail it right in the front leg, blood spraying everywhere. But did it slow down? Of course not. It just locked in even harder, eyes burning with pure murder, and launched itself at me like I personally owed it cash. So yep, that's where we're currently at. Me versus a completely psychotic 700-pound apex predator with an arrow sticking out of its head, and a massive grudge. Cool. Totally fine. Everything is absolutely great. Grit my teeth. Let another arrow fly, and caught the beast right in the ear. The giant, oversized cat stumbled back, screeching in agony. And then, get this, it actually retreated. The legendary king of the forest decided I was way too much of a headache to deal with. Smart move, kitty. I immediately rushed to check on Linger. She was trembling like crazy, but managed to give me a shaky thumbs up. Then I sprinted over to old man Huang. The tiger had swiped him right across the face on its way out, peeling off a massive chunk of his skin. Just gorgeous. Truly the most beautiful sight to wake up to in the morning. I told Linger to hold his face together while I went herb hunting, because why not scavenge in a crisis? I found some sanchi to stop the bleeding and kill the pain, along with some purple herbs to prevent the wound from rotting. I smashed them all up with a rock, slapped the paste onto his face, ripped my shirt to make bandages, and wrapped him up like a straight-up mummy. Of course, I left holes for his eyes, nose, and mouth, mostly because I'm just incredibly thoughtful like that. Immediately, Huang dropped to his knees, banging his forehead against the dirt, swearing his entire life now belonged to me. Look, I appreciated the drama, but my eyes were locked onto those massive, premium ginseng roots he just dropped. I straight up told him to sell them to me later, but he insisted on giving them to me for free. Obviously, I shut that down. Friendship is friendship, but business is business. Yeah, I'm noble like that. Plus, I really wanted that high-grade ginseng guilt-free. Suddenly, Linger shrieked. That Xiao Long had actually chased after the wounded tiger. Because of course he did. The guy has the survival instincts of a dodo bird, harboring a massive death wish. I ordered Linger and Huang to head back down, and sprinted after Captain Suicide, with nothing but my trusty crossbow. Now, when those two finally made it back to the village, Linger went absolutely hysterical, screaming that Xiao Long and I were about to become tiger food. Naturally, the entire village lost their minds. The chief brandished a massive blade. Some guy named Sun Ping rallied with a pitchfork, and Li Fuxing wielded an axe. Even the village cripple unsheathed a lethal DIY machete. As for my sister-in-law, Xiao Wu, she grabbed a bow, but then remembered we had silver inside, and decided to stay behind and guard the stash. Talk about having your priorities straight. Meanwhile, my wife Ji went completely pale, nearly collapsed but instantly forced herself up, snatched a crossbow, and charged up that mountain in tears. Honestly, she would take on an apex predator for me. I definitely won the marriage lottery. Meanwhile, I had already completely handled the situation. Tracked down Xiao Long, saved his clueless but yet again. Long story short, and straight up executed the tiger. Boom, threat neutralized. 700 pounds of pure, striped menace. Utterly folded by the town's resident underachiever. When the rescue squad finally stumbled upon us, Ji threw herself into my chest, sobbing uncontrollably. I hit her with my most swagger-filled smile and said, "Babe, I'm perfectly fine." Naturally, she cried even harder. Nailed it. Right after that, Linger hyped me up, telling everyone I soloed the beast. The skeptical village chief asked if it was just some cub, but Linger claimed it was bigger than 10 wolves put together. Right then, everyone's jaws collectively hit the dirt. Stunned, the chief immediately ordered the crew to, dragging my massive trophy back to the village, while old G practically carried me down the mountain. Look, my legs were only shaking because of the brutal terrain. Not fear, definitely just the terrain. And right when I thought this insane day couldn't get any wilder, this high-status woman named Su Yao flexes into the village on a majestic white horse, rolling deep with a massive entourage, and heads straight for my humble little straw hut. Because apparently soloing a mutant apex predator before lunch just wasn't enough action for one day. So yeah, while I was out there being an absolute legend, this drop-dead gorgeous noble, Su Yao, pulls up to my crib on a white stallion, with heavy muscle, looking for the legendary beast slayer. She took one look at my ragged straw roof, and instantly started questioning all her life choices. Meanwhile, my fiercely loyal sister-in-law, Xiao Wu, was holding down the fort, like a one-woman army. These high and mighty outsiders showed up acting entitled, so Xiao Wu Lox loaded a bow and basically told them, "Beat it." The bodyguards instantly drew their blades, and Xiao Wu didn't even flinch. Even the village elders backed her up with rusty farming tools. It was about to be the most hilariously one-sided brawl ever. Elite steel versus garden hose. I arrived just in time to prevent a total bloodbath. Xiao Wu had already let loose a warning shot that literally shaved the eyebrow off. The lead bodyguard. This girl has absolutely zero chill, and honestly, I respect it. But then my eyes locked onto Su Yao, and my brain completely short-circuited. Flawless porcelain skin, mesmerizing eyes, and a vibrant purple silk dress flowing in the wind. She was, without a doubt, a literal goddess who accidentally descended into a mud village. My immediate thought, wow, she would make an incredible wife. Mind you, my actual wife was standing right next to me. Yeah, I'm a terrible person. Su Yao scanned my scrawny, undernourished build, and her face visibly radiated pure disappointment. Then she caught me unashamedly staring, which made her even more irritated. Fantastic first impression all around, right? She claimed she traveled all this way to witness my legendary archery skills. Her bodyguard casually tossed a tiny knife sheath into the air, challenging me to snipe it. Now, this is where my high IQ big brain kicks in. I had just calculated and deleted a massive tiger with pinpoint accuracy. Hitting that tiny target would be child's play. But then I realized, if I flex too hard right now, these high and mighty nobles are never gonna leave me alone. So I pulled off the ultimate big brain move. I choked the shot, missing the target by a mile. Man, must be the wind, I muttered, scratching my head like a total clueless amateur. They set up another shot, and I whiffed even harder. That arrow flew so wildly off course. Probably crossed the border into the next town. Everyone was staring at me like I had 3 heads. Su Yao's expression instantly shifted from disappointment to pure, unadulterated confusion. She demanded to know how I supposedly soloed an entire pack of wolves, when I couldn't even hit a target standing 3 feet away. On the inside, I was throwing a massive victory party, but on the outside, I was playing the role of the lovable village idiot to absolute perfection. Now, these elites would finally write me off and forget I exist, allowing me to slide back into my cozy, peaceful life of selling basic herbs and getting pushed around by 3 chaotic women. At least that was the master plan. So there I was, standing right in front of this drop-dead gorgeous heiress and her elite squad, delivering an absolute masterclass in acting. When she pressed me on how I managed to hunt down those wolves, I looked her dead in the eye with a straight face and told her, well, see, I was safely camped out in a tree, just picking them off one by one from above. They couldn't reach me up there, so I just kept taking my sweet time shooting, until they were all dead on the ground. Honestly, an absolute Oscar-worthy performance. But her bodyguard, Lady Wang Xin Xiao, wasn't buying it. She immediately cut in. But how could a simple hunter reload fast enough to take down that many beasts? I just blinked at her, giving her a look like she had just asked the dumbest question on earth. Like I said, I was up in a tree. They couldn't touch me, so why would I need to rush? Hearing that, Su Yao's face went through about 17 different stages of utter disappointment. She finally sighed and said, right, well, doctor, we have far more pressing matters to attend to. Farewell. I gave them a goofy, enthusiastic wave like a clueless local. Safe travels. Don't be strangers. Come back any time. She flashed me that overly polite plastic smile people give you when they have absolutely zero intention of ever setting foot here again. As I watched their carriage fade into the distance, I finally let out the biggest sigh of relief in my entire life. Look, the girl was an absolute 10. Flawless porcelain skin, starry eyes, literally the whole package. But I'm nowhere near strong enough to be tangling with high society powerhouses and the inevitable drama they drag along. So yeah, sometimes a man's gotta let a beautiful butterfly float away. Pretty poetic of me, right? Just then, my wife walked up with this knowing little smirk. Hubby, you missed that shot on purpose, didn't you? I just winked. How else was I supposed to get rid of them? Her smile immediately widened. I knew it. Meanwhile, Xiao was giggling behind her hand. Brother-in-law, you are so sneaky. I love it. But wait, back on the main road out of the village, Su Yao suddenly pulled her horse to a dead stop. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but she apparently turned to her bodyguard and asked, Nightblade, do you think he threw that shot on purpose? And yes, Nightblade. That is his actual name. These rich elite types are seriously something else. He scratched his chin and admitted it was possible, but tough to call. But Xin Xiao instantly wrote me off as a total fraud. Please, he was staring at you, like you were a snack. If he actually had skills, he would have flexed them to show off. Honestly, fair point. She wasn't wrong about the staring part. Not my proudest moment. Anyway, Su Yao was just about to ride off for good, when a massive uproar echoed from the mountain path. Nightblade went to investigate, only to come galloping back, grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. My lady, we've been played. That doctor just soloed a giant tiger. The dead silence that followed must have been legendary. Xin Zhao's jaw probably hit the saddle. No way, Nightblade. Could you kill a tiger? Nope. Not a chance I'd survive. Then how on earth did that scrawny con artist do it? Nightblade just shrugged. Hey, go ask the villagers yourself. And so she did. She marched back looking completely sour. Totally dynamic shift. That little rat actually took down a whole tiger? He must have stumbled into some insane luck. Suddenly, Su Yao's eyes lit up. This Master Yi isn't just an god-tier archer. He's hiding his true power and dodging the clout. What an absolute gigachad. Turn around. We are heading right back to his place. Meanwhile, I was vibing, buying ginseng from Old Man Huang. 3 premium roots for just 30 coins. Both of us were grinning like absolute idiots. Life was good, and those annoying rich snobs were finally gone. Secured the bag with the ginseng. Everything was perfect. Then I heard hooves. Massive thundering hooves getting closer. Instant dread washed over me. I dropped the loot and sprinted outside. Ji and Xiao were right on my heels. And yep, there she was.
Su Yao.
Flexing back on her white horse, dismounting like she owned the entire block. Xiao Wu's face completely twisted in disgust. Why are these pests back? But oh, it got worse. Way worse. Because right behind Su Yao, marching straight down the mountain path, was Village Chief Li with a dozen sweaty dudes, parading my dead tiger right through the center of town, like a literal festival float. 700 pounds of receipts, proving that I was definitely not the useless nobody I had spent the last 20 minutes pretending to be. Make way! Out of the road! The chief was screaming, his voice literally cracking from the hype. Li Fuxing was practically doing a victory dance. Brother Wei, you are an absolute beast. This massive apex predator. And you folded it with just a couple of arrows? Auntie Wang gasped in sheer shock. Old man Ma was literally shaking. Kids were swarming the beast, poking at it. My little adopted girl, Tao Tao, tugged at my sleeve, asking if I was some legendary hero from the myths. I just stood there, watching my carefully crafted low-profile cover completely crumble to dust in real time. I went all out, missing my shots on purpose, acting clueless, playing the perfect village idiot, and these beautiful, wonderful, absolutely terrible villagers flexed my kill, right in front of the exact person I was trying to fool. Talk about horrific timing, guys. It felt like the universe was actively trolling me, and honestly, I'm convinced it was. Right then, Su Yao actually bowed out of sheer respect. Master Yi, I majorly misjudged you before. Your skills are insane. But then, she dropped a total bombshell. I'll buy that tiger off you for 30 silver taels. Bro, the crowd completely lost their minds. The village cripple looked ready to pass out on the spot, while Tao Tao squealed that we were officially filthy rich. Old man Moss just stroked his beard in disbelief, muttering that he'd never seen that much bag in his entire life. 30 taels? That's what a massive haul of 40 wolves gets you. And this girl was ready to blow it all on a single tiger. The math was doing some seriously beautiful things to my brain. Then Xin Xiao stepped up, barely keeping it together, and desperately trying to hide the fact that she just branded me a total scam artist. Little honored sir, this is an absolute premium, top-dollar offer. You literally won't find a better deal in the whole kingdom. I glanced at the tiger, looked over at the massive stack of cash, and then stared at Su Yao's insanely hopeful face. Hey, fantastic offer. I shrugged. But nah, I'm gonna pass. It's not for sale. Xin Zhao's eyes practically rocketed right out of her skull. Wait, you're seriously not selling? But my sister-in-law, Xiao, was already jumping around like an energized little rabbit. What, are you deaf or something, lady? The man said no. And then she proudly announced that we'd be roasting up that prime tiger meat for dinner tonight and turning its pelt into a cozy new winter coat. The entire crowd went dead silent for a solid 2 seconds, before absolutely erupting into pure, unadulterated chaos.
Li Fuxing looked legitimately, personally offended.
You're actually going to eat it? Andy Wong started stomping her feet, screaming about the sheer waste, and old man Ma literally clutched his heart, wailing dramatically about how we were straight up destroying a priceless national treasure. I mean, think about it, 30 silver taels on the table, and the local village idiot decides he'd rather have a backyard barbecue. I could literally feel their burning gazes of disappointment, boring straight through my back. Meanwhile, Su Yao's face went through a whole roller coaster of emotions. This high-tier warrior woman had clearly traveled the world, commanding instant respect wherever she set foot. And yet, here she was, getting repeatedly shut down by some random, scrawny nobody. Standing in my literal shack, she takes a deep breath, and straight up apologizes for the chaos her squad caused. Then she actually bows to me. Her bodyguards look like they're having a medical emergency, watching their literal princess bow to a total peasant. She announces she's leaving, turning to mount her horse, with maximum main character energy, head high, chin tilted up, pulling the ultimate "you're gonna regret losing me" exit. But that's exactly when my brain flips into hustle mode. Yo, Miss Su, hold up. She spins back, eyes looking cold enough to freeze hell over. The entire village is staring at me like I've completely lost my mind. Look, I'm not gonna sell you the tiger, I say, flashing my most dangerously charming smile. But I never said I wouldn't just give it to you. Cue the dead silence. Su Yao's brain literally just short-circuited. Wait, you're gifting me this massive tiger for free? Bingo! The villagers go completely brain-dead again, mouths hanging wide open, Flies could literally move in and start raising families in there. Even Xiao Wu is totally lost. But she trusts me enough to keep her mouth shut. Whenever I'm cooking up a wild new scheme. Smart girl. Su Yao is trying her absolute hardest not to smile right now. And she is failing spectacularly. Her lips are twitching. Her eyes are sparkling. This legendary ice queen is literally melting. Right in front of everybody. She actually told me later she couldn't understand why her emotions always went totally haywire the second I'm around. Welcome to the club, sweetheart. I just have that effect on people. Now here's the real play. I originally tried to scare her off by acting like a useless nobody, but the universe completely ruined that plan by parading my dead boss monster tiger through town at the absolute worst possible moment. So plan B, if I can't push her away, I'm gonna reel her all the way in. Keep your enemies close and keep your gorgeous, filthy rich potential business partners closest. Miss Sue. Mind stepping inside for a little private chat? I walk right into my hut without even waiting for an answer. Total power move. She hesitates for a second, probably staring at my sad, broken down little straw house, and questioning every single life choice that led her to this moment. But she follows me anyway. Instantly, her bodyguards try to barge in too. She slammed the door right in their faces. Outside, I could hear Xi and Xiao literally choking on his own rage. Meanwhile, Su Yao scanned my depressing living space, or more accurately, my complete lack of furniture. We're talking cracked walls and a table from the Stone Age, and chairs that were basically a safety hazard. But somehow, the entire place was absolutely spotless. Props to my wife who keeps this dump looking cleaner than a 5-star luxury palace. She gracefully took a seat right across from me, radiating pure elegance and poise, and asked what exactly I wanted to talk about. Now, this is where my doctor instincts kicked into overdrive. While everyone else was too busy drooling over her gorgeous face, and trust me, she is an absolute 10 out of 10. I had clocked something completely different. Specifically, the way she dismounted her horse. Favoring her right side, leaning ever so slightly, tiny, subtle details that screamed left leg injury to anyone with actual medical training. So naturally, my gaze drifted down to her left thigh. Oof, big mistake. She caught me staring instantly, and her vibe went from mildly curious to straight-up murderous. In less than a millisecond, I could literally feel the incoming slap loading in her mind. Misu. I blurted out before she could end my life. Your left leg. It's severely injured, isn't it? Just like that, her rage vanished, and her eyes went wide. How on earth did you know that? I broke down every single detail I've picked up on. The hesitant dismount, the uneven weight distribution, and that subtle lean. Then I casually reminded her that I am, an actual doctor. She was so hyper-focused on my tiger-slaying hero hype that she'd completely forgotten my day job. I grabbed her wrist to check her pulse, and damn, her skin was unbelievably soft. Focus, Yue. Focus. Get your head in the game. Unfortunately, the medical diagnosis was looking pretty grim. Blocked blood circulation, severely damaged meridians, and stagnant energy pooling all through her leg, due to some massive impact trauma. And yep, she confirmed it. She'd been hit by a literal carriage 2 weeks ago, and the injury was refusing to heal. I immediately locked in and put on my serious doctor face. Miss Sue, if we don't treat this right now, best case scenario, your leg is going to wither away. Worst case, you'll be permanently crippled. She instantly went pale as a ghost, visibly trembling. Then, I took a breath and asked to examine the actual injury. The vibe in the room instantly became unbelievably awkward. Her leg, specifically her upper thigh, was right there. And me? Just some random dude she met 30 minutes ago in a rundown shack. To break the ice, I hit her with the classic doctor speech. To a true physician, gender doesn't exist. There are only patients. Super professional. Extremely noble. Honestly, I almost bought it myself. She scanned the room, glanced at the windows, weighed her options, and finally gave me the green light. I told her to lie on the bed and show me the injury, then walked over and locked down the window shutters. Outside, the sudden silence from my wife and Xiao Wu was deafening. They were definitely reaching for their weapons. I could literally feel their suspicious, burning glares, piercing straight through the walls. Right on cue, Xiao Wu's confused little voice drifted through the wood. Sis, why did brother-in-law just shut the windows? Fantastic question, Xiao Wu. Phenomenal question. On the inside, I was a dedicated medical professional. about to treat a patient. But from the outside, it looked exactly like the village creep had lured a wealthy girl into his hut and sealed all the exits. Yeah, my reputation was about to take a massive hit. So there I was, trapped in my shack, with the most breathtaking woman I'd ever laid eyes on, preparing to do something that sounded infinitely worse than it actually was. Meanwhile, right outside, my wife, my sister-in-law, and a whole squad of armed bodyguards were literally gluing their ears to the walls. No pressure at all. Su Yao lay back on the bed and slowly pulled up her dress. Now, let me be crystal clear here. This was strictly a medical checkup. Purely professional, totally clinical. But holy mother of heaven, this woman's legs were absolutely unreal. Flawless, porcelain skin, long and elegant, glowing effortlessly in the dim light, like they were literally sculpted by angels, who specialized strictly in perfection. Nasty bruises ran straight along her meridian points, looking harsh and violent against her jinak skin. And yet, I caught a blatant glimpse of her pink underwear. Look, I'm a doctor, not a dead man. My mind instantly wandered to some wildly unprofessional thoughts. For about 3 solid seconds, I was imagining what it'd be like to play with those legs for a whole year. Then, I mentally slapped myself and snapped right back to business. Sui Yao's face was burning brighter than a summer sunset, and her heart had to be doing absolute backflips. She'd tried to prepare herself for this, but the moment I actually lifted her thigh to examine it, she let out this high-pitched gasp that literally echoed through the entire courtyard outside. Oh yeah, everyone heard that. I could practically feel the collective judgment radiating from the entire village. Xiao Xiao instantly charged the door, only to find it locked tight. Panicked, she started screaming out for her mistress. But bless Sui Yao's heart, she yelled right back through the door, with a booming voice that could command an entire army. Nobody steps foot in here without my explicit order. Xiao Xiao backed off immediately like a scolded puppy. Meanwhile, Sui Yao just lay there, looking like she wanted the bed to swallow her alive. Some incredibly intrusive thoughts crept in, about what kinds of sounds she'd make in other scenarios. But I quickly kicked my own brain into gear, and focused entirely on the medical treatment. The diagnosis was clear as day. Severe blood stagnation was completely blocking the vital acupuncture points along her leg meridians. No wonder her body wasn't healing at all. The blood was just pooled there like a massive roadblock, totally refusing to flow. Her previous doctors had probably just been throwing random herbs at the problem, when what she actually needed was someone to physically unclog the pipes. "How much longer are you going to keep staring?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Poor girl. I'd actually stopped touching her leg, but I was still intensely analyzing the bruise patterns. From her perspective, though, it definitely looked like I was just shamelessly admiring the view. Which, okay, maybe a little bit, but it was 90% medical. I reached into my beat-up, rusty old medical box and pulled out a silver needle. The original owner of this body had dabbled in some basic textbook acupuncture, and honestly, his actual skills were absolute trash. But hey, his needles were still top tier, and that was all I needed to get to work. First up, I flame sterilized the needle over an oil lamp, grabbed a handful of fresh cotton cloth I just scored in town, and flexed back over to the bed. Su Yao's eyes instantly went wide. "Wait, you know acupuncture too? What? I don't look the part?" She backpedaled so fast she almost tripped. No, that's not what I meant. Relax, this is just gonna sting a bit. Brace yourself." She took a massive gulp of air and locked in her game face. "Do it. I'm ready." I mean, this girl grew up riding horses and mastering lethal combat. A tiny little needle wasn't about to break her, or so she thought. Locating the blocked pressure points, the blood C, San Yin Jiao, and Zusanli, I straight up drove the needle right in. Cue the absolute wildest, most scandalous groans echoing out of the room. Outside, Xian Xiao and Nightblade practically teleported to the door. I could literally hear the frantic shuffling and panicked whispers, and I just knew someone's hand was hovering directly over the doorknob, struggling with the urge to burst right in. They were down there imagining the absolute worst-case scenario. To be fair, the audio track coming from inside was definitely not helping my case. I efficiently drained the stagnant, nasty blood from her pressure points, cleaned everything up with the fresh cotton cloth, and carefully pulled her dress back down. "All right, give it a walk." So Yao sat up, spotted the blood-soaked cloth in my hand, and looked completely bewildered. But then, She swung her legs off the mattress and took a couple steps. Bro, her eyes went full-on anime saucer wide. How did you? My leg feels practically brand new. I broke down the whole blood clot situation for her. In dummy terms, clogged meridians, drain the backup, and boom, everything's flowing smoothly again. Give it just 2 days to fully heal up. No expensive medicine required. Just eat light and don't go flexing any crazy moves. She just stared at me like I'd straight up performed a divine miracle. Which honestly, kinda did. We finally stepped outside together, and Xian Zhao's entire security squad, visibly deflated with massive relief the second they saw Su Yao. Alive, well, and completely unharmed. But then, Xian Zhao noticed it. Su Yao's face was still totally flushed and bright pink, and her internal suspicion meter instantly broke the radar again. Su Yao immediately ordered Xian Zhao to go grab her funds. Pay Master E 50 taels of silver. 50. Full amount. Hearing that massive bag, my wife's jaw literally unhinged, and Xiao Wu's eyes turned straight into dollar signs. The villagers completely short-circuited. Even Xian Zhao choked as Sui Yao broke down the pricing. 30 for the tiger, and another 20 for the medical treatment. I totally respected the hustle, but I had to play it cool. How about you drop 30 right now for the tiger? And the remaining 20 once your leg is 100% healed in 2 days? That way, you know you're getting your money's worth. She locked eyes with me for a second, probably trying to read whether I was a legit honorable gentleman, or just running some high-level scam. Finally, she smiled. Deal. A super reluctant Xian Zhao fished out a 10-tael silver ingot, along with a 20-tael one. I snatched those bad boys and stuffed them into my shirt so fast, you'd think they were about to vanish into thin air. Much appreciated, Miss Su. She gave a polite bow, promised to return in 2 days, and hopped onto her horse, riding off with her entourage. I watched them disappear, now 30 taels richer, and feeling like the ultimate con artist turned doctor / tiger slayer in the entire realm. But right then, my wife grabbed my face with both hands, staring dead into my soul for an uncomfortably long time, before saying, "Husband, I need to give you something right this second. Get inside." She locked onto my hand and dragged me into the house. Before my brain could even process what was happening, the front door slammed shut behind us. From outside, I could hear Xiao Wu muttering, "What is up with everyone aggressively closing doors today?" Inside, Jia dragged me along, slammed the inner door, locked it, and barricaded every single window, like we were prepping for a Category 5 hurricane. Meanwhile, the village women outside were giggling up a storm. One of them shouted through the door that Jia better keep me on a super tight leash, before some other girl swoops in and steals me away. Xiao Wu immediately threatened to throw hands with anyone who uttered another word. Honestly, that girl is basically a tiny attack dog, and I absolutely love her for it. But back inside, Jia pulled me straight to the bed. Her eyes were burning, with an absolute fire that was definitely not anger. My blood pressure instantly skyrocketed, and every single cell in my body was screaming, "It's go time!" She had been watching me play the ultimate hero all day, slaying massive tigers, saving beautiful women, and securing bags of silver like an absolute boss. And honestly, that absolutely did the trick for her. I leaned in for a kiss, and she immediately kissed me back. I pinned her to the bed, ready to make my move, but she gently caught my hands. "Please, not tonight," she whispered. "Xiao Wu is literally right outside." She looked up at me with those massive, teary eyes, biting her lip as her cheeks flushed a deep, rosy pink. She was practically trembling like a frightened little deer. And just like that, every single drop of my wild, primal energy instantly melted into pure, soft-hearted mush. I gently wiped a stray tear from her cheek, gave her a soft kiss, and forced myself to pull away, which felt about as pleasant as ripping off a band-aid from my soul. Fine. Tonight's not the night. Bro, it physically pained me to utter those words. My entire lower half was screaming and filing a formal protest, but I let it go because apparently, I'm a certified gentleman now. Who would have thought? She instantly bounced up, planted a sweet kiss on my cheek, and I handed over the 30 taels. She gave me another enthusiastic peck and squealed, "Hubby, you are the absolute best." Then she literally skipped to the bed, yanked up the loose wooden board, and secured the silver inside our secret stash bag. But as she spun back around, she caught me red-handed, staring dead-on at her backside. Her face instantly went full-on nuclear red. She bolted straight for the door and flung the windows wide open so fast. You'd think the entire house was burning down. The village women outside took one look at us, fully clothed and having been inside for barely 5 minutes, and immediately put 2 and 2 together, realizing we were just hiding our new fortune. Suddenly, several wives started glaring at their husbands with that universal, deadly look. Why can't you go hunt a tiger and bring home 30 taels of silver? Honestly, those poor guys did not deserve that smoke. But I definitely wasn't about to bail them out. Just then, Xiao Wu skipped over.
Hey, sis.
What were you two doing in there anyway? Man, my wife's face was so hot you could have fried an egg on it. And nothing. We were just putting the silver away. But couldn't you guys have just done that later? Why the sudden rush? A great question. Xiao Wu, that is an absolute 10 out of 10 question.
Ik glanced over here.
And my eyes accidentally drifted to the small cot, where she sleeps every single night, located literally right next to our bed, trapped in the exact same room with absolutely zero privacy. How on earth was tonight supposed to work out, especially with my sister-in-law crashing just 3 feet away? Were we just supposed to keep it down and be dead silent? Or was I supposed to casually ask her to step outside? Like, hey Xiao Wu, mind taking a little walk for about... Wait, how long does this whole thing even take? You know what? Never mind. Just hit the bricks. But before my mind could spiral any deeper into that total logistical nightmare, Village Chief Li barged right in with a squad of locals, looking dead serious. Yo, Yue, we've got a major problem on our hands. That immediately snapped me back to reality. What's up, Chief? Oh, and by the way, can you get some guys to haul that tiger carcass over to Suyao in town? He just brushed it off. Already on it. Sun Ping and the boys are currently handling it. You just need to square up and pay them later. Man, the chief really is a real one. But right after that, he dropped a massive bombshell. In 4 days, those ruthless bandits from Poison Snake Mountain are launching a full-scale raid on our village. They're going to plunder our grain and kidnap our women, which means your wife and her sister need to figure out how to look absolutely hideous, fast. Hearing that, Ji-Er and Xiao Wu instantly went pale. The chief had actually brought along the village's seasoned experts on bandit survival. Granny Nyo scrutinized my wife and sister-in-law from head to toe, muttering that they looked way too soft and pretty. But then she mused that maybe the bandits would pass them up, since they looked completely useless for hard labor. Auntie Wang immediately shut that theory down. Are you out of your mind? Bandits crave the soft, gorgeous ones. That's literally their exact type. Old Man Ma chimed in, agreeing it was better to play it safe. Make them ugly. Granny Nyo nodded along. Smear thick ash all over your faces, then pack on some cow dung and urine. That'll definitely do the trick. Ji-Er and Xiao Wu just stared at her, looking completely horrified, like she just told them to eat live spiders. Auntie Wang piled on. Their hair is way too beautiful too. Honestly, we should probably just shave it all off. Then Auntie Tian took it to a whole new extreme. Better yet, gouge your faces up with your fingernails. Once those scars build up, you'll be set. Those bandits won't touch you if you look like a total biohazard. Xiao Wu instantly lost it. You expect us to smear literal poop on our faces, shave our heads bare, and tear up our own skin? I'd literally rather die. She snapped, storming right out. Gu bolted after her, while Granny Nyo just sighed, muttering under her breath about how kids nowadays just don't get it. Like, hello? A temporary glow-down beats a permanent funeral. The other villagers were all nodding along too, acting like this absolute madness was completely normal logic. The chief then turned to me, telling me to get my women in line. But I had a completely different game plan. Hey chief, have you ever actually thought about, fighting back? He froze dead in his tracks, slowly turning around, and stared at me like I just suggested building a rocket to the moon. You want to wage war on the bandits? I just gave him a solid nod, and the whole village straight up lost their minds. He's completely insane. Those monsters will slaughter every last one of us. They're worse than a pack of starving wolves. Instead of arguing, I just grabbed my custom repeating crossbow and shoved it right into the chief's hands. As he inspected it, the realization finally clicked, and his fingers literally started twitching with pure excitement. Wait, is this the weapon that dropped that massive tiger? Go ahead, give it a spin, I replied. He stepped outside, lined up a shot at a tree about 100 meters out, and pulled the trigger. Thwack! The bolt buried itself insanely deep into the solid trunk. His eyes went wide as saucers. That's when I showed him the rapid-fire mechanism. Just rack the lever, and boom! Fire again. He racked it back, squeezed the trigger, and the second bolt absolutely screamed right past the tree. Soaring past the 200-meter mark, the old man nearly had a total heart attack. Mostly because a bunch of clueless villagers were standing right in that direction. I quickly snatched the crossbow back from him, and rapid-fired 3 bolts in the blink of an eye. Thunk, thunk, thunk. All 3 slammed dead center into a peach tree 170 meters away. A literal bullseye. The chief was visibly shaking now. Unbelievable. Just then, Linger came bouncing over with a smirk. Pretty insane weapon, right, Chief? He nodded, but then the harsh reality of their situation set back in, and he defeatedly shook his head. Having just 1 or 2 of these won't stop a whole bandit raid. Okay, what about 10? I countered. His eyes sparked with hope, but quickly dimmed again. Still, not enough to save us. Then how about 30 of them? I asked. He just stared at me, like I just revealed I was a literal god descending from the heavens. Which honestly, some days, I'm starting to wonder about that myself. Then, I dropped the ultimate mic drop line on the village chief. Plus, every single arrow tip is getting dipped in my special knockout poison. 1 scratch of this toxic blend, and a massive tiger is instantly done for. Naturally, the village chief's jaw hit the floor. But An Yuan immediately brought everyone back to cold, hard reality. He pointed out that the poison snake. Mountain bandits roll 50 deep, fully armed with swords and bows. We're talking about a literal mini-army. Meanwhile, our village defense force is basically grandmas with brooms. Relax, I've got this. I chimed in, acting cooler than a cucumber. I'll just call in some heavy backup from the elite Sioux family in town. Hearing this, everyone's brains completely short-circuited. But honestly, think about it. The richest heiress in the region just handed me 30 silver taels, and promised she'd return in 2 days. Plus, her wealthy old man already tried to recruit me as his son-in-law, so getting them to spare 20 fighters couldn't be that much of a stretch, right? Well, I'd figure out those minor details later. The chief then turned his gaze to Linger. Can you really build 40 high-tier crossbows in just 4 days?
Linger erglänzt over ihm.
Then nodded like a loyal soldier accepting an absolute mission. If this dummy says we can pull it off, then we can. Man, I love this girl. Unshakable, blind faith in a guy who's been winging it since day 1. The chief, however, gave me 1 strict ultimatum. If the Sioux family's elite reinforcement crew doesn't show up, the night before the bandits are scheduled to raid, the entire plan is off. Fair enough. I locked eyes with him, deadly serious, and gave my word. Our backup will be here a full day early. Guaranteed it. Yep, my mouth was writing massive checks that my brain had absolutely no clue how to cash yet. But hey, that sounded like a perfect problem for future me. With the plan set, the chief roared, ordering the entire village to assemble immediately. Li Fuxing and the village cripple quickly spread the urgent call. Kids dashed through the dusty streets, shouting the wild news. Within mere minutes, every single resident was packed in a tight crowd around us, excluding the 12 guys currently hauling my massive dead tiger to town. Instantly, protests and arguments started flying like arrows. The elders were shouting that we had lost our minds. A young mother, desperately clutching her infant, broke down in tears, terrified for her kids' lives. Then some grumpy middle-aged guy grumbled, "Sure, the kids got talent, but we are hopelessly outnumbered here." Just then, Li Fuxing leaped forward, raising his fist high. "Are you kidding? We've got the legend who single-handedly slayed wolves and a giant tiger. You seriously think a few low-life bandits are scarier than that? I'm done bending the knee to these pathetic thugs." Even the crippled villager backed him up. "I'd rather go down swinging than stand by while they drag our women away again." The entire square erupted into absolute chaos until Chun Xiaolong, bless his perpetually angry heart, unleashed a roar so savage it probably terrified beasts. 3 mountains over. "Everyone shut the hell up. Wiping out these bandits is the play. Stop your whining." Instantly, dead silence. Yeah, nobody argues with a lunatic who hunts wounded tigers. For pure fun, the chief sealed the deal by laying out our secret weapon, the heavy crossbows, alongside my promised 20-man elite reinforcement squad. All eyes locked onto me. After the wolves, after the tiger, and after a wealthy heiress rolled up with chests of raw silver, they knew I was the real deal. Right then, you could feel the entire energy shift. The fear was still lingering, but pure hope was finally taking over. Qin Xiaolong glared at me with this incredibly complex look. Half deep respect, half, I still low-key want to punch you. Before barking, tell us what you need. We're all in. Just like that, everyone started volunteering. The chief turned to Linger for the raw materials list, and she rattled off the specs without even blinking. Highly specific timber for the main bows, heavy-duty metal components, high-tension strings, the whole 9 yards. This girl literally had the entire blueprint memorized. 3 specialized teams formed on the spot. The first group headed deep into the mountains for the perfect wood, mulberry, sandalwood, and ultra-dense hardwoods. The second group bolted straight to town for supplies, while the third stayed behind to act as Linger's assembly crew. The entire village transformed into a high-octane weapons factory. In less than 10 minutes, it was a beautiful sight, but as everyone scrambled to their stations, I noticed Dongmei limping painfully toward Linger's crew. Man, this poor woman. She had been through absolute hell. Sold off, ruthlessly abused, and brutally beaten. Yet here she was trying to labor through injuries that made every single step pure agony. Dongmei, come here. She flinched instantly, like I was about to strike her. Master, what do you need me to do? Just follow me. So, I low-key guided her behind the house, totally out of sight. Relax, it wasn't anything sketchy, just pure privacy. This poor woman had enough trauma without a live studio audience. Hey, how are those injuries holding up? Instantly, her eyes darted straight down to her inner thighs, before snapping back up at me in absolute terror. She immediately braced herself for the worst, because let's be real, every single man in her life had been straight-up trash. I noticed your limp is getting way worse, I said, softening my voice. Those wounds are infected, aren't they? Right on cue, her nose flushed red and the tears started flooding. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words just choked up. This girl had been so thoroughly brutalized that just a shred of basic human decency completely broke her down. Time to cut through the awkward tension. Look, I get the vibe. I'm gonna forage some anti-inflammatory herbs, and you can just apply them yourself when you get home. With that, we started trekking up the mountain. But man, the trail was brutal and steep, and Dongmei was straight up struggling with every single step, wincing in pain. Sweat was pouring, and she was wobbling like she might pass out. I reached out a hand to steady her, but she flinched away from my touch like I was a literal open flame. I am totally fine, master. I really don't want to be a burden. Look, if you wipe out and wreck yourself more, that is a burden. Just let me help. Still, she refused, stubborn pride clashing with deep-rooted shame. So, I slowed my pace to match hers, keeping a sharp eye on her. From my peripheral vision, along the way, I spotted some dandelion root for the swelling, and grabbed some purslane to accelerate the healing, explaining the perks of each one as I harvested them. Meanwhile, she just stood there, anxiously twisting the hem of her shirt. She clearly wanted to say something, but she was absolutely terrified to speak up. What's on your mind? Is there something else wrong? Boom, her face went completely crimson. She started stammering, admitting that after last night's horrific ordeal, she mentally couldn't bring herself to tend to her own wounds. Plus, a bunch of the cuts were on her back, completely out of reach. Suddenly, she started dropping to her knees, begging me for help. I caught her by the arms before she even hit the dirt. Whoa, stop that. I never said no. Her eyes instantly flashed with the most intense gratitude I've ever seen, all directed right at me. She literally thanked me like 15 times in the span of 3 seconds. All right, let's head to your place. I'm patching everything up right now. Honestly, she practically sprinted ahead to lead the way, her pain completely forgotten in the moment. I trailed right behind her, herbs in hand, already rehearsing my alibi, just in case some nosy village auntie caught us in the act. Hey, just the local doctor making a routine house call. Perfectly normal, right? Nothing sketchy at all about a grown man delivering medicinal plants straight to a woman's house. Totally standard procedure, happens every single day. I mean, at the end of the day, I am the only actual doctor this village has. And let's look at today's schedule. Slain an alpha tiger, healed a wealthy baddie's paralyzed legs, organized a whole village militia from scratch, and now a personal house call for emergency trauma care. Yup, just another casual Tuesday. On my way back, Linger intercepted me on the path, bouncing toward me like a deer on a caffeine rush. She was lugging a massive sack filled with my hunting loot. Turns out she'd safely stashed it during the entire tiger fiasco, and was only now bringing it back to me. Inside were 4 rabbits, 3 wild chickens, and a pristine fox, all perfectly fresh and intact. I tried to force 3 of them on her as a reward for being an absolute MVP, but she just snatched a single rabbit and vanished like a ghost. Man, that girl runs on pure, unadulterated loyalty and stubbornness. Next, I dropped by Dong Mei's to give her a chicken for some much-needed nutrition. Predictably, she tried to refuse, tried to drop to her knees, and tried to burst into tears, the classic Dong Mei emotional bundle. I just shoved the chicken directly into her hands, handed over the herbs, and told her I'd slide by later, to properly treat her wounds. As she walked away, she was clutching that chicken like it was made of solid gold. Finally, I made it home and knocked on my own front door. Guer opened it, sporting adorable messy hair, flushed pink cheeks, and eyes that literally ignited like fireworks the second she saw me. She instantly grabbed my bag, pulled out a chair, poured me a fresh cup of water, and straight up treated me like a conquering emperor returning from war. I swear, this woman has the power to make a man feel 10 feet tall just by serving him a simple drink. I unzipped the bag to show off the day's haul, and her eyes went absolutely wide. 3 rabbits, 2 chickens, and a fox. She completely lost it, pointing out that we hadn't even finished the roast duck and pastries from our last haul. We were literally suffering from success, drowning in food and cash. In just a matter of days, her life had completely flipped from barely eating once a day to, "So, which gourmet meat are we feasting on tonight?" Give it a week. I could literally see her gears grinding trying to process this insane upgrade. I asked her where Xiao Wu was hanging out. Turns out he was crafting crossbows with Big Bro Langer. He stayed behind to guard our massive, rapidly growing pile of silver. Smart girl. And that's exactly when my brain connected the dots. Xiao Wu was completely out of the picture. The door was right there, and my gorgeous wife was standing here. Totally alone. Just the 2 of us. In a room, with a bed. Bro, I locked that door so fast. The hinges probably caught whiplash. I lunged straight for my girl, like a starving wolf spotting a helpless lamb. My lips crashed into hers before she could even blink. I wrapped my arms around her waist, pulling her so close. I was basically trying to fuse our souls into one person. Her face went from a soft pink to full-on volcanic red. In about half a second, she stumbled backward, her hands weakly pushing against my chest. Her feet tangled up, and she fell right back onto the bed. Hair wild and messy, lips parted, eyes half closed. She looked like a literal masterpiece. The kind that gets banned from museums for being dangerously beautiful. Wife, I breathed. We are doing this right now. I was already making a move, reaching for her waist, but she locked onto my hands with a grip. From a woman who absolutely meant business. Husband, wait. Xiao Wu could walk in at any second. Please just wait until tonight. I promise. Tonight, I'll do whatever you want. I looked straight into her fierce, determined eyes. My down-bad body was screaming yes. My primal brain was screaming yes. Every single molecule in my being was screaming yes. But her eyes pleaded, "No, not yet." And those damn eyes held a spell over me that no terrifying tiger or brutal bandit ever could. I tried to fight my own internal urges. I tried to push past the hesitation. And then, my entire body just completely gave out. My legs turned to jelly, and I collapsed straight onto the floor like a total sack of potatoes. My wife practically rocketed off the bed in pure panic, grabbing me and frantically checking me over, patting me down everywhere. She cried, "Husband, are you hurt? What happened?" What happened was, I had been running on absolute fumes since the crack of dawn, fueled by a grand total of 2 bowls of watery porridge and a single duck leg. And that was literally my entire energy supply for the day. Keep in mind, I had already dove into a river to save someone, squared up with a 700-pound tiger, treated 2 critical patients, organized a whole village militia, hiked up a massive mountain for rare herbs, and tried to shoot my shot with my wife. My body had basically filed for complete bankruptcy. Wife, I'm absolutely starving. Please, pass the pastries. She immediately scrambled to grab the food. I inhaled 2 pastries and chugged down water, like a man rescued from the Sahara Desert. Slowly, life started returning to my limbs. Better now, way bet. Suddenly, her stomach growled, and it wasn't some polite little gurgle. It was a full-on roar, like a smaller, hungrier tiger was living inside her belly. "Wife, have you even eaten today?" She gave me this shy little smile that honestly made me want to flip a table. "I'm not that hungry. 1 meal a day is already way more than I'm used to. 1 meal a day. One." This gorgeous, hard-working, fiercely loyal woman who ran around all day long, worrying about me, guarding our money, and doing all the cooking and cleaning. She was surviving on just 1 meal a day, and she considered that a luxury. Before marrying me, ever since her family got raided, she'd been living on practically nothing. Right then, something inside me snapped. Not the angry kind, the fiercely protective kind. Starting right now, this family eats 3 meals a day. Every single day. And every single meal is having meat. She just stared at me, looking like I just announced we were moving to the moon. 3 meals with meat. Every day? After being stripped of absolutely everything. She couldn't even comprehend it. But I wasn't asking, I was commanding. She finally nodded. "Okay, whatever my husband says." I stood up with renewed purpose. "I'm going to butcher 2 chickens right now. Tonight we're having loaded ginseng chicken soup." Her entire face completely transformed. Just pure joy and excitement. Then she got a tiny bit shy and muttered, "Husband, just 1 chicken might not be enough." So we cooked both. She was cooking up 2 whole chickens in ginseng soup. Just a few days ago, a feast like this would have been an impossible dream. But now, it's just a casual Tuesday dinner. I prepped and chopped those birds in record time, tossed the meat into a basket, washed up, and just admired my wife standing by the stove. Her hair was still a bit messy from earlier, her cheeks were perfectly flushed, and she was humming softly while heating the water. She had absolutely no idea how breathtakingly stunning. She looked doing something as simple as boiling a pot. My heart immediately started pounding again. Bro, my self-control was sitting at a 2% battery charge. I snuck up right behind her, wrapped my arms around her waist, and pulled her in tight. Tonight honestly couldn't come fast enough. I kissed G's cheek, gave her a playful little squeeze. I just couldn't help myself, and bolted out the door while she chased after me, shouting at me to bring Xiao Wu back for the chicken dinner. Pure domestic bliss, folks. This right here is what peak marriage looks like. The sun was setting fast, and I had a medical house call to make. But halfway there, I spotted 2 shady dudes ahead of me, who definitely did not belong in our village. Their build, the way they walked, the dangerous vibe they carried. These were Chung Lang's brothers. Chung Lang as in the dead criminal, whose body was currently serving as fertilizer in some unmarked patch of dirt. His brothers were sniffing around for clues, and they had targeted Dong Mei's place to look for their missing sibling. My pace went from a casual stroll to, "Oh hell no, you don't," real quick. When I finally reached Dong Mei's house, she was standing right at the gate, looking like a terrified rabbit that barely escaped a fox. The exact second she saw me, she practically dragged me inside, locked the door shut, and spilled everything in one panicked, shaky breath. Chung Lang's brothers had ambushed her, demanded answers, and even threatened to report her to the authorities. She managed to bribe them with some silver scraps to buy time, but they promised they'd be back tomorrow. I told her to relax, because those scumbags weren't coming back. Why? Because tonight, I was sending them on a one-way trip, to reunite with their dead brother. She looked terrified, instantly asking if that was too dangerous. I just flashed a confident smirk and told her I had it completely under control. Honestly, I was maybe 60% sure I actually had it under control. But hey, 60% is technically a passing grade, right? Anyway, I said, let's patch up those injuries first. Turns out Dong Mei had already prepped the medicine. She crushed the healing herbs into a thick paste, doing it exactly the way I taught her. Smart girl. She brought over the bowl of medicine along with a clean cloth. The moment it hit my nose, the stench nearly knocked me out cold. Seriously, it smelled worse than a skunk convention, but medically it was flawless. Lie down, I told her. Let's get started. Her face immediately flushed bright pink, and she stared up at me with those anxious, doe-like eyes. Then, she went ahead and bolted the door again. 2 locks in under 2 minutes, man, this girl was thorough. With trembling hands, she finally walked over to the bed. The room was dimly lit, with the fading sunset bleeding through the paper-thin walls. The first thing that caught my eye was the massive bruise on her face. It was a dark, nasty-looking blotch that absolutely should not have been on her delicate skin. Let's start with your face first, I murmured, carefully dipping the cloth into the herbal paste. But the second the cloth brushed her cheek, she violently flinched as if I'd just pressed a burning hot coal against her. I softly asked if it hurt. Her voice came out as nothing more than a faint whisper. Just a little. I immediately softened my touch until it was feather-light, tending to the painful swelling with extreme care. As I locked in on treating her injuries, I noticed her stealing glances at me in the warm, golden light. Apparently, my side profile was putting in some serious work. I played it cool and pretended not to notice, because addressing it right then would have made the vibe 17 times more awkward. But then came the real challenge. Her upper body needed treatment, too. She turned her back to me and began loosening her top. The sight instantly killed every single joke in my throat. Her back was a literal roadmap of pure hell. Brutal whip marks crisscrossed over her skin, like a cluster of angry centipedes, with painful welts layered on top of older welts. Some were fresh and bleeding, while others had already scarred over. This was concrete proof that this wasn't just a one-off thing. This was systematic, cold-blooded torture by a literal monster named Xiao, who treated this poor woman like some kind of disposable toy, simply because she had the ultimate misfortune of being beautiful. I carefully cleaned every single wound, and with every gentle touch, she visibly shivered. Not from the cold but from sheer trauma, the kind of deep-seated memories that lock into your muscles and trigger a panic response at even the slightest contact. When I moved to tend to her front, she turned around with heavy hesitation. Her eyes searched my face, looking for any trace of disgust, lust, or that same predatory hunger she'd been conditioned to expect from men. But what I hope she saw instead was just a dedicated doctor doing his job. Because honestly, that's all I was right then. Just a guy holding a wet cloth, with a burning urge to beat a dead man to a pulp. "Did you get these injuries?" I asked softly. "When you tried to escape?" Instantly, her eyes swelled with agonizing pain, the kind of raw heartbreak that goes way deeper than skin. She gave a faint nod, and heavy tears began to well up, flooding her eyes like they were about to burst. I immediately shut up. Some doors, once cracked open, unleash nightmares that you can never lock away again. She wasn't ready to face those demons yet, and I sure as hell wasn't going to force her. Once I finished treating her torso, I told her she could cover back up. As she slipped her shirt back on, her frantic breathing finally stabilized a bit. Then, she pulled up her pant legs so I could treat her legs, revealing the exact same horror. Deep, sickening bruises shaped like handprints, where someone had forcefully grabbed and squeezed her, with pure, malicious intent. Her legs were naturally gorgeous, long, pale, and elegant, which only made this cruel defacement so much more tragic. Her beauty had literally been her curse. It put a target on her back for a predator, and monsters like that never let go easily. I had her lie back down and carefully tended to each mark, one by one. She trembled uncontrollably the entire time, holding back a flood of tears. To distract her from the pain, I started chatting, telling her she should swing by my place more often, to hang out with Ji and Xiao Wu. They were all around the same age, so I knew they'd hit it off. Hearing this, she nodded softly and managed a fragile, quiet yes. She choked out "Master" through her tears, and as I finished bandaging her legs, the harsh reality of what we had to do next settled over the room like a suffocating blanket. Some of her injuries were in highly sensitive areas, requiring us to cross boundaries neither of us wanted to. At this point, she was completely sobbing, clenching her fists so hard her knuckles turned white, her entire body shaking like a leaf in a Category 5 hurricane. "Please," she whispered through her tears. "Please help me. I can't do this. I can't do it alone." She just couldn't face it. She couldn't touch those trauma-inducing wounds without reliving the absolute nightmare that caused them. She desperately needed someone else's steady hands, because her own hands wouldn't stop trembling. I stared down at this broken yet incredibly brave woman, who had somehow survived horrors that would have completely shattered anyone else. Right then, I made a choice, not as a man, but as a doctor, and as the only person in this entire village she actually trusted enough to ask for help. Some days you slay literal tigers and feel like a total badass, but other days you hold a medicated cloth and realize that the real monsters in this world walk on two legs and hide behind human faces. I finished treating the worst of Dong Mei's injuries, but looking closely at the damage, it made me want to dig up Zhao's corpse, just to take his life all over again. The severe swelling and infection were absolutely brutal, And that was just what was visible on the surface. I applied the healing ointment with extra care, told her I'd be back tomorrow for round 2, and made sure to remind her to eat that chicken tonight. Her body desperately needed the nutrients to recover. But of course, this girl tried to drop to her knees to thank me again. Seriously, what is with her and kneeling? I caught her mid-fall, telling her to stay in bed and stop exerting herself. But right as I turned to leave, she caught me completely off guard, asking, "Master, does what you said last night still stand?" I remembered telling her that she was family now. "Of course it does," I replied. "We're family." She looked up at me with these complex, glistening eyes and softly whispered, "Husband." My entire body froze, my brain instantly went offline, and my system crashed into a literal blue screen of death. Hold up. Did she just call me husband? Not master, but husband. Her entire face flushed so bright red, I seriously thought she was about to explode. "I am so sorry, master." My tongue slipped. Before my brain could even process it, I grabbed her hand. "Just focus on recovering first. We'll handle everything else later." She stared at me like I had just handed her the entire universe. "From this moment on, my life and death belong entirely to you." Damn, talk about heavy, absolute main character vibes. I gently lifted her chin and dropped a smooth line, telling her I wanted to see her looking beautiful and healthy. Once she fully healed, she immediately turned into a total tomato again, stuttering out a promise to eat her chicken right away. Good girl, I thought, fully blaming the inner demon on my shoulder for that one. But right before stepping out the door, I couldn't resist turning back. "Hey, call me husband just one more time?" Her jaw literally dropped, but not a single sound came out. She just stood there frozen, her face completely on fire, mouth opening and closing like a clueless goldfish. I just smirked and decided not to push it any further, strolling right out of there feeling like the absolute worst, yet best person alive. Walking into the main room, little Tao Tao was busy boiling water over the stove. This kid is barely 8 years old, but honestly, she's way more responsible than half the adults I know in this world. She sprinted right over, pigtails bouncing wildly, looking up at me with those sparkly anime eyes. She assured me that everyone was doing fantastic, that Dongmei was taking amazing care of them, and that I really shouldn't stress so much. I pinched her cheek, gave her a gentle head pat, and made my exit before my heart could completely melt into a puddle right there on the floor. Next stop on the list, Linger's blacksmith shop. The deafening clang of hammers echoed from 50 meters away. The place had officially transformed into a full-blown weapons factory. Turns out, Linger had organized the entire operation, like a pint-sized military general. She had the regular villagers hammering out the basic components, while she secretly crafted the complex, high-tech parts, hidden away in a private corner. Smart move, that way nobody could steal her top-tier blueprints. She already had enough materials lined up for 10 heavy crossbows. By tomorrow night, seriously, this girl was an absolute genius, disguised in a rugged blacksmith's apron. "Not bad at all, Linger." She wiped the sweat off her brow, puffed out her chest, and smirked like a proud little boss. "PFF, obviously. Do you even know who you're talking to? When that absolute clown gives me a job, I get it done." I grabbed Xiao Wu and secured the perimeter back home. And oh man, 2 massive wild chickens, simmering in a rich, loaded ginseng broth were waiting for us. The 3 of us absolutely demolished that feast. Bones picked clean, soup bowls licked spotless. 2 chickens, 1 premium ginseng root, and absolutely 0 survivors. We ate like a pack of starved wolves discovering fine dining. But then night fell, bringing a thick, heavy darkness, which meant it was time for the one part of the evening I had been desperately trying to erase from my mind, my lethal arrangement with Sister Chin, to completely wipe out Chung Lang's brothers. I locked and loaded my tactical crossbow, strapped on my quiver and gave Ji the heads up that I was heading out. She immediately grabbed my sleeve, her eyes filled with pure anxiety, while Xiao Wu started hyping up some local urban legends about man-eating giant snakes lurking on the mountain. After dark, I gave them both a reassuring nod, promising to stay sharp. But right then, Ji completely dropped a bombshell on me. Her face flushed a beautiful pink in the dim lamplight as she whispered, "Husband, come home early tonight. Xiao Wu is actually crashing over at Linger's place, so I'll be waiting for you." Bro, every single drop of blood in my body instantly rerouted straight down south. No annoying little sister-in-law around. An empty house. And a gorgeous wife waiting up for me? I almost called off the entire assassination mission. Right then and there. I'll make it quick. I choked out and practically power walked into the abyss. Before my treacherous legs could betray me and carry me straight backward into that bedroom. Eventually, I made it to the massive banyan tree at the village entrance. But there was no sign of Sister Chin yet. While I was waiting around, nature suddenly called. So I slipped into the nearby brush to handle some urgent business. Bad decision. Terrible, horrific decision. An award-winningly catastrophic life choice. Because crouched down on a rock, barely 10 feet away in a glaring patch of moonlight, was Chin Mei Yuan, also handling her business. The exact same business at the exact same time in the exact same woods. Our eyes instantly locked, and time literally ground to a halt. My heart straight up exploded out of my chest, did 3 hyperspeed laps around the moon, and violently crashed back into my ribcage. "Get out!" she shrieked. I scrambled backward so fast. I almost face-planted straight into a bush. My face was burning redder than a sunset, looking like I had a massive allergic reaction. I literally turned tail and bolted from the scene, with my brain stuck on an infinite replay loop of what I just witnessed. Because let's be real, some images, once seen, can absolutely never be unseen. And this was definitely one of them. A few minutes later, she finally emerged from the tree line, holding a tactical crossbow identical to mine. Linger must have just custom-built it for her. We just stood there, aggressively avoiding eye contact, like 2 complete strangers, stuck at the world's most awkward bus stop. "Hey you," she hissed through clenched teeth. "You do not breathe a single word about what just happened." "Sister Chin, I swear, I didn't even get a clear look." She narrowed her eyes. "Oh, so you wanted to see it clearly? I mean, if you're offering." Immediately, she pinched my waist so hard, I yelped like a kicked puppy. "You little brat. Mercy. Mercy. Shut up." Her entire vibe went dead serious in half a heartbeat. "Tonight, we're taking out targets. Absolutely nobody can know we were ever here. Lock in." "Yes, ma'am. Whatever you say, ma'am." With that, she bolted straight into the pitch black. This woman was moving like a literal shadow, dead silent and insanely fast, practically gliding across the forest floor like a jungle cat. I sprinted after her, burning every single calorie from that ginseng chicken soup, just to keep up. But then, she stopped on a dime. My brakes completely failed, and I slammed directly into her back at full speed. My arms instinctively wrapped around her, as I crashed hard into Sister Chin, accidentally gaining a very detailed understanding of her exact body dimensions. She let out a tiny gasp that I immediately filed away in the "think about this later" folder in my brain. Before I could react, she slapped a hand over my mouth and dragged me behind some nearby trees. My heart was doing absolute gymnastics, and my hands definitely remembered that feeling. "Focus, you focus." Just then, I heard voices coming from up ahead. 2 very familiar figures stood under the moonlight. It was Sun Ping and his wife Yang Yueguai. Actual neighbors. People I genuinely trusted. People I had literally gone out of my way to help. And what were they whispering about? "Once we secure those 20 tails, we're set for life."
Yang Yueguai, he said.
Sun Ping seemed to hesitate. "But, Yu's family has always been so good to us." "So what? Everyone was poor and happy until they got rich. It's their own fault for flaunting cash." Sun Ping, the exact same guy who literally knelt before me in town, and swore his undying loyalty, was now plotting to sell me out for a measly 20 taels. My life literally had a price tag on it. And honestly, the amount was kind of insulting. I was a second away from lunging at them. My fists were clenched so tight that my knuckles turned completely white. But Sister Ching grabbed my arm, forcing me to hold back. "Chung Lang's brothers come first," she whispered. "We can crush those 2 snakes later." She was right. We needed to prioritize. Eliminate the threats first, exact revenge second. I was still absolutely fuming when she leaned in close. "Listen," she said softly. "Most people in the village are good. And as for me, I would never betray you." I couldn't resist throwing a little smirk. "I figured you just had a thing for me." Her face instantly flushed red under the moonlight. Then she nodded. Like actually nodded. "Yes, I do like you. You're incredibly talented. You know medicine, you designed that badass crossbow. And you literally saved my brother from a tiger. How could I not like you?" She suddenly realized she was mid-confession, and her face went from a light blush to deep crimson, and honestly probably straight to ultraviolet. We can talk about this when we get back to the village, she stammered. For now, let's go handle business. Because seriously, nothing says romance like an assassination date under the stars. We quietly slipped into the neighboring village, and squatted low right next to a worn-down shack. Sister Ching breathed. We take out Chung Bao first, then we finish off Chung Shirong. Suddenly, noises echoed from inside. Very distinct, unmistakable sounds. A woman's heavy breathing. Sister Ching's face instantly caught fire. Cover your ears right now, she ordered. Sister Ching, come on. I'm not a kid. Just cover them. I just grinned. She looked like she desperately wanted the ground to open up and swallow her whole. And so, we just stood there trapped in absolute agonizing awkwardness. Until the chaos inside finally died down. Suddenly, the front door creaked open, and a woman stumbled out, desperately clutching a bag of rice. Her clothes were completely torn to shreds. Her hair was wild, and her eyes were full of pure terror. But wait, this wasn't his wife. This was just a poor, innocent villager named Sister Lu. Right on her heels, Chung Bao came charging out like a madman. He aggressively yanked her hair and snatched the rice back. Please, my husband and kid haven't eaten in 2 whole days. She begged on her hands and knees, crying. Just let me feed them, and I promise I'll come right back. But he just snapped. Shut up. You're not going anywhere until I'm completely satisfied. Without an ounce of mercy. He dragged her back inside by her hair, ignoring her desperate screams and struggles. This absolute scumbag was literally forcing a starving mother to serve him, all while her own flesh and blood starved to death at home. Seeing this whatever tiny shred of guilt I had about our little assassination plot instantly evaporated. Like water on a scorching hot skillet. Thwack! Thwack! 2 lethal arrows flashed through the doorway, burying themselves perfectly into Chung Bao's skull. The monster dropped like a heavy sack of rotten potatoes, before he could even let out a single peep. Sister Lu stared at the fresh corpse, panicked for about 3 seconds, but then her eyes locked onto that bag of rice. Thinking of her starving family waiting at home, she snatched the food and sprinted full speed into the darkness. Talk about pure survival instincts. Yeah, she definitely wasn't throwing a mourning period for that abuser. Suddenly, Sister Chin grabbed my hand, and we immediately bolted toward our next target. As we ran, I couldn't help but notice her tight grip. Her fingers felt so slender and delicate, and her palms were impossibly soft, especially for someone who just cold-bloodedly orchestrated a murder. But hey, I wisely decided to keep that thought to myself. Next stop was Chung Xiong's place, but it was completely empty. The entire house reeked of cheap booze, with broken furniture everywhere, and empty wine jugs scattered all over the floor. Yep, nobody was home. The guy was clearly out somewhere being an absolute menace to society. But right then, we heard a distinct noise coming from a nearby house, and let's just say it was definitely of the adult nighttime variety. Sister Chin's face instantly flushed red with pure embarrassment. She scowled, muttering in disgust. Ugh! You men, the moment night falls, you guys seriously only have one thing on your minds. I couldn't resist throwing in a little sarcasm. Well, what else are poor villagers supposed to do after dark? They could play chess. She snapped back fiercely. Can't people just normal sleep? Like me and your brother do. Urga went 3 whole years without doing a single thing, and just like that, she slammed her mouth shut. Her eyes widened in pure horror. She did not just tell me that. She literally just admitted her husband hadn't touched her in 3 years. Don't you dare repeat a single word of that. Back in reality, my brain was doing absolute Olympic cartwheels. 3 years. So Brother Urga couldn't even perform in bed. Well, that definitely explained why Sister Chin had no kids. Honestly, it explained a whole lot of things. My eyes slowly traced her gorgeous silhouette in the moonlight. This absolute baddie, this elite, combat-trained goddess had been sleeping next to a guy who couldn't even appreciate what he had. For 3 whole years, the universe was sending me a massive signal right now. I wasn't sure if I should even listen, but the message was coming through loud and clear. But before I could even fully process the insane implications of this spicy revelation, a voice shattered the pitch-black silence. Who's out there? Show yourselves. It's Chung Sheng. He found us. My grip instantly tightened around my crossbow. Sister Chin's entire body went dead rigid right beside me. Any trace of that playful vibe instantly evaporated. We were back to reality, two people deep in hostile enemy territory, shrouded in darkness, with blood already on our hands and a massive body count left to finish. Well, at least I wasn't bored. I mean, between my actual wife waiting at home in an empty house, Dong Mei randomly calling me her husband, Sister Chin low-key confessing she into me, while accidentally leaking her lack of a bedroom life, plus Sun Ping literally plotting my brutal murder, and now some psycho thugs screaming in the dark just 20 feet away. This was officially the longest, most unhinged day of my life. And the worst part? It wasn't even over. Chong Shang stepped right out of the shadows, looking like a straight-up nightmare creature that you forgot to wake up from. He was absolutely massive, hideous, stacked with pure muscle, and oozing pure malice. He had a massive bow aimed directly at our faces, grinning like a literal demon who just found a fresh meal. And then, this absolute creep started completely ogling Sister Chin. His disgusting eyes slowly crawled all over her body before parking right on her chest, like they were literally paying rent. She kept her crossbow perfectly steady, but I could see her jaw clenching with absolute, murderous rage. I didn't waste time giving him some dramatic villain speech. I just straight up blasted him in the chest. He let out a pathetic shriek, stumbling backward, with this absolutely hilarious look of pure shock on his face. Like, he genuinely couldn't comprehend that someone had the absolute audacity to put an arrow through him. Sister Chin immediately stepped up and planted another one right in his dome. Talk about icing on the cake. Chung Sayong hit the dirt, officially retired from being a problem forever. That's two brothers down, and with Chung Ling already deep-sixed from before, this entire toxic family tree was officially chopped down. But we barely even had time to celebrate the dub before an alarm gong started hammering away, somewhere deep in the village. Yep, someone had just stumbled across Chung Bao's body. Instantly, absolute chaos erupted from every single direction. Angry villagers were grabbing whatever weapons they could find, frantically organizing bloodthirsty search parties, and screaming bloody murder about catching the killers. "We're completely boxed in," Sister Chin hissed. I was literally spinning in circles like a headless chicken, panicking hard. Every single path had a wave of angry footsteps closing in fast. We were just two assassins standing over a fresh corpse, with zero escape routes available. This was bad. Like catastrophically, irreversibly bad. Suddenly, this ancient-looking grandpa materialized, out of the shadows, shuffling straight toward us. The guy was heavily hunched over, sported pure white hair, and his clothes were honestly more patches than actual fabric. We immediately aimed our crossbows at his chest because at this point, I was so jumpy I was ready to shoot my own shadow. "Heroes, quick, hide inside my place," he urged, waving frantically before hobbling away. Sister Chin and I exchanged a look that said it all. This is either our ultimate salvation or a total death trap, and we have exactly 2 seconds to make a choice. Screw it. We followed him. His shack turned out to be emptier than my bank account was. Before we got that sweet tiger bounty, we pressed our backs tight against the door, intently listening to the furious mob outside. Our hearts were pounding so insanely loud, I was positive the villagers could hear them vibrating. From all the way across the street, heavy footsteps thundered right past us, and the leader of the search party ground to a halt right outside. "Old man Tian, have you seen anyone acting suspicious around here?" Without skipping a beat, the old man pointed off to the right. I heard some screaming and ran outside. He lied smoothly. "Saw a couple of shadows sprinting that way. Get after him." Just like that, the entire angry mob stampeded off in completely the wrong direction. Sister Chin and I literally felt a massive wave of relief wash over us. The absolute second we realized the coast was clear. Old man Tian stumbled back inside and instantly fell to his knees, sobbing out, "Thank you, heroes. Those 3 Chung brothers murdered both my sons and their wives. You've finally avenged my family." Hearing that, my lingering guilt completely evaporated. We hadn't just taken out random targets. These guys were absolute monsters who tore families apart and held an entire village hostage with fear. The old man's tears were all the proof we needed, that we had done the absolute right thing. Sister Chin tried to press some silver into his hands, but he refused, referring to me as her husband. She instantly opened her mouth to correct him, but I was already physically dragging her toward the exit. Yeah, we did not have time for a relationship status update. We bolted straight out of the village and charged blindly up the nearest mountain path. It was a full-on sprint with zero game plan. Just pure, adrenaline-fueled flight mode. We kept running until the village noise completely died out. And the dense forest swallowed us whole. And that's exactly when the vibe took a massive nosedive. The trees suddenly loomed massive and ancient, completely choking out every last ray of moonlight. The air grew freezing cold and damp, reeking of rot and decay. Eerie, unidentified animal calls echoed from the shadows, and every instinct told me this forest was deeply, fundamentally wrong. Sister Chin grabbed my arm so tight her nails literally dug into my flesh, and when I looked down I instantly saw why. Blocking our path was a massive python as thick as my thigh. Its dark brown scales shimmered like wet, polished armor, and its eyes, two glowing, eerie green points, locked onto us while its forked tongue tasted the air, letting out this menacing, low hiss that basically said, "You messed up, we're on Snake Mountain." Sister Chin screamed, "Run! Snake Mountain?" The legendary nightmare the village elders warned kids about. A place crawling with giant pythons, as wide as water barrels that literally swallow people whole. The single most terrifying spot in the whole region, that absolutely no sane person would ever step foot in, and we had just sprinted headfirst right into it, like a couple of absolute idiots. Talk about jumping out of the frying pan and straight into a volcano. Somehow, I managed to completely leave Sister Jane in the dust. And no, it's not because I'm some track star. It's because pure, unadulterated terror is the ultimate performance enhancer. But right then, a heavy thud echoed right behind me. Sister Jane had completely tripped over a rock, eating dirt and slamming face-first into the ground. The shriek she let out wasn't some dramatic movie scream. It was that raw, agonizing sound that makes your stomach instantly churn. Her ankle was completely bent sideways, at an angle that a human foot should never, ever go. She tried to push herself up, but it was useless. Cold sweat started drenching her face like someone had literally turned on a faucet. And behind us, that terrifying, loud hissing was getting closer by the second. That massive python was hot on our trail. "My ankle's broken. Carry me," she panicked. Without a single brain cell working, I immediately dropped into a squat. She scrambled onto my back, and I locked my arms tight under her legs. Her entire body pressed completely flat against mine, and by that I mean two incredibly soft, undeniably noticeable parts of her anatomy were squished right against my upper back. My brain immediately locked onto this information, flagging it as extremely crucial business. But my primal survival instincts instantly slapped a restraining order on my hormones. "Not the time, brain. Giant, deadly snake over here. Focus." I took off sprinting like my life depended on it, because it did. Sister Jane was clinging to my neck for dear life, her hot, heavy breaths blasting right into my ear, as her mangled foot bounced violently with every stride. Suddenly, another python, thicker than a man's arm, slithered right across our path. I swerved around that thing so fast, I almost went airborne like a helicopter. By the time we finally cleared that nightmare mountain, I was absolutely drenched in sweat. My leg muscles were ready to sue me for abuse, and my lungs had officially turned in their resignation letters. I spotted a flat boulder and set her down, as gently as my shaking, gelatinous arms could manage. She just sat there, staring blankly at her ballooning ankle, then at the endless, exhausting road back home, and finally up at me. "Yi, you know how to patch up injuries, right? Please, take a look at it." I looked down at her foot, and then I looked up at her face, flushed, bathed in the soft moonlight, and breathtakingly beautiful despite the chaos. My eyes locked right back onto her foot. Seriously, just in one single day, I'd literally slain a tiger, raised a whole militia, patched up 2 girls' injuries in private rooms, exposed a massive betrayal plot, straight up assassinated 2 criminals, outrun an entire mob, accidentally raided Snake Mountain, carried an absolute baddie on my back, all while dodging giant pythons. And now, I was giving a late-night foot massage under the stars. Meanwhile, my actual wife was sitting at home, waiting in bed. Yeah, I was definitely not making it back tonight. I crouched down, catching my breath, and carefully slid off Sister Jean's boot and sock. Under the moonlight, her bare foot looked insanely smooth, pale and delicate. Intrusive thoughts instantly kicked in. I low-key want to bite it. I had to physically stop myself from actually doing something that unhinged. Seriously, what is wrong with me today? Stop staring. It's totally stinky. She blurted out, her face turning bright pink. I leaned in closer and took a sniff. Nah, it actually smells amazing. Her eyes went completely wide, and her blush went full-blown tomato mode. I could literally hear her heart pounding. From right where I was crouching, I gently pressed around her ankle, checking for the damage. Does this hurt at all? How about right here? Gasp, gasp. Yes, that hurt so bad. Her absolute shriek echoed across the empty mountainside. If there were any surviving Chung family members lurking around, they knew our exact coordinates now. But lucky for us, we'd already wiped them all out. The diagnosis was simple. A classic dislocated ankle. Nothing was broken. So, I grabbed her foot, angled it perfectly and gave a sharp twist. Crack. She let out a sharp yelp, then instantly went quiet and wiggled her toes. She moved her ankle, the pain was completely gone. I slipped her sock and boot right back on, and helped her up. She took a couple of cautious steps, then a few confident strides, and turned to look at me, completely mind-blown. How are you even this good at medicine? Before you got married, you were totally useless. Hey, before marriage, I was just a boy, so I straightened my posture and flexed as hard as I could. Look at me, I'm an absolute beast now, I bragged. She just smirked. Oh yeah? A beast with a scrawny little body like that. But the exact second those words left her mouth, she realized how insanely provocative that sounded. Instantly, her entire face flushed bright red. Man, this woman blushed more in a single hour than most normal people do in an entire lifetime. I flashed a cheeky grin. Want to find out just how beastly I can get? Sister Jean. Her brain short-circuited for a full second, before she violently snapped back to reality. You shameless little brat. How dare you openly flirt with your own sister-in-law? She pinched my waist so violently that I literally saw stars. Ow! Ow, ow, ow.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I take it back. But let's be real, I was 100% going to do it again next time. We strolled back toward the village entrance, bickering and laughing the whole way, like two carefree kids returning from a wild adventure. Which honestly I guess we were, if your typical childhood adventure includes a double homicide. And dodging giant mutant pythons on the outskirts of town. She suggested we split up so nobody would catch us sneaking in together. It made total sense, but then my eyes drifted to her lips, soft, perfectly curved, and practically glowing under the moonlight. So I teased, how about a goodbye kiss first? You just never learn, do you? She dug her fingers into my side and pinched me again, just for good measure. She watched me squirm in agonizing pain, then turned and walked away, looking incredibly smug and satisfied with herself. I watched her graceful figure disappear into the darkness, my playful smile fading instantly, because the second she was gone, my mind snapped right back to cold, hard business. Sun Ping and Yang Yueguai. Those backstabbing, opportunistic snakes. They were probably sleeping like babies in their warm beds right now, dreaming about the fat stack of cash they'd pocketed just for selling me out to my executioners. My fists clenched, blood boiling, and my jaw locked tight. I turned on my heel and marched straight toward their house. Within moments, I was at their front door, foot raised, ready to kick it down, when suddenly, Sister Chin materialized out of nowhere, looming behind me like a gorgeous, spectral ghost. I knew you'd come here. Before I could react, she grabbed my arm and dragged me behind a massive tree. I was absolutely furious. Those two-faced rats need to die tonight, I hissed. But she remained completely cold, calculating, and logical, laying out the facts like an absolute chess grandmaster. If you murder them now, the imperial authorities will swarm this entire village by tomorrow morning. They will investigate every single detail, and they will find out. If you craft 40 military-grade crossbows, you're getting slapped with rebellion charges. They will literally decapitate you and your wife. That whole crossbow scheme is a total death sentence. I mean, I knew it was bad, but hearing her lay it out like that was a brutal reality check that instantly cooled my rage. Making a few crossbows for hunting? No big deal. But mass-producing 40 lethal weapons? In this world, that is the quickest way to get executed for treason. I gritted my teeth. There's no way I'm letting those bastards live. But Sister Chin was already playing 4D chess. Tomorrow, I'll lure them up the mountain, under the guise of chopping wood for the crossbows. You shadow us quietly, and once we corner them, we force them to spill who their boss is. Then we end them and bury the evidence. We'll blame the whole thing on the tigers, prowling deep in the mountains. Wait, are there actual tigers up there? At least 2, she replied. I just stared at her, dumbfounded. This girl had just plotted a cold-blooded murder, an interrogation, a cover-up, and a frame job using endangered apex predators, all in the span of about 15 seconds. She was terrifyingly calculated, and honestly, I loved it. All right, we do it your way, I said. She let out a sigh of relief, and reminded me to keep my distance from her group. Tomorrow morning, wait for her signal, and not pull any reckless stunts. Before we parted, I gave her a genuine thank you. She smiled, saying I had just patched up her sprained ankle, so we were even. But of course, my idiot mouth couldn't just leave it at that. You know, your foot actually smelled kind of amazing. Her face instantly flushed bright red. If it smells so good, why don't you take a bite then? Bet. Let me try. I immediately squatted down, reaching for her leg. She leaped back like I just brandished a weapon. Stop. We are leaving right now. She insisted on escorting me all the way home, mostly because she definitely didn't trust me not to go on a solo murder spree. The second she let me out of her sight. Honestly, a totally fair assessment. We had almost made it back to my place, when Xin Xiaolong suddenly jogged out of the shadows. Sis, where on earth have you been? I was worried sick. Sister Qin immediately panicked, getting caught walking me home. Sneaking around late at night with a married man was honestly a terrible look for her. She quickly grabbed her brother's arm and tried dragging him away, but Xiaolong totally caught me off guard. He locked eyes with me, dead serious, and said, Brother Wei, I was completely wrong about everything before. He paused, then added, From this moment on, whatever you need, just say the word. I scanned his face, looking for any sign of sarcasm or anger. There were no mind games, no massive ego, just a young guy, swallowing his pride to show some genuine respect. Sister Qin looked like she was about to cry tears of pure joy. All right, I replied. Welcome to the team. As they walked away into the night, I stood there all by myself in the darkness, and my brain finally snapped back to reality, hitting me with the one thought I'd been suppressing all evening. Ji was home alone. Xiao Wei was crashing over at Linger's empty place, which meant my gorgeous wife was waiting in bed just for me. My legs started moving, pacing up into a light jog, and then I was full-on sprinting through the village streets, like I was being hunted by giant pythons all over again. Except this time, the only thing driving me forward was pure, unstoppable, intoxicating desire. Wifey, your man is finally on his way. I knocked on my own front door like a proper gentleman, even though literally every single cell in my body wanted to kick it down. Babe, your husband is home. The door swung open, and my brain instantly short-circuited. Ji had styled her hair up into this incredibly elegant look, with these delicate, loose strands framing her gorgeous face, like she was posing for a high-end masterpiece. She was wearing that brand-new dress I'd bought her, and let me tell you, it hugged every single curve, in ways that should honestly be illegal. This woman had been seriously prepping for this moment. She had been sitting in here, glamming herself up and looking breathtaking, while I was out there dropping bodies and running for my life from killer snakes. Husband, she murmured softly, are you actually coming inside? Or are you just going to stand there staring? I stepped inside. Xiao Wei was long gone, meaning the entire house was completely empty. It was just me, my stunning wife, a locked door, a cozy bed, and the absolute rest of the night, stretching out wide before us like a beautiful, completely wide-open highway. She poured me a glass of water, which I downed in a single, desperate gulp, as she stood right in front of me. Her cheeks flushed bright pink, eyes shy but full of resolve, as she dropped the ultimate line that absolutely wrecked me on the spot. Husband, why haven't you made me yours yet? My jaw literally hit the floor, and I swallowed hard, my throat clicking. Oh, I'm making you mine right now, I said, pulling her into a kiss. The second our lips met, her knees instantly buckled, and she melted right into my chest like warm, sweet honey. Without wasting a second, I scooped her up to carry her to the bed, trying to play it cool like a legendary hero carrying his princess. Except this hero was absolutely trembling with hype, and I almost face-planted over a stray stool. Before things got too heated, she gently stopped me, just to lay a pristine white cloth across the sheets, for the classic wedding night tradition. To prove her purity, she carefully settled onto the bed, looked up at me with those absolutely devastating eyes, and softly whispered, Husband, aren't you coming? Now look, I'll spare you the graphic details. But what I will say is this. This was my first time in literally 2 entire lifetimes, and I poured the combined energy of both lives straight into this moment. We're talking multiple rounds. Absolute peak performance. Yeah, I might have gone a little too wild. The next morning, the warm sunlight hit my face, and I woke up feeling like the absolute king of the entire universe. I glanced over at the white cloth beside me, saw the clear proof of our unforgettable wedding night, and grinned so hard my cheeks literally started aching. Last night was everything I ever wanted, and then some. Just then, GE pushed the door open, bringing in breakfast, a fresh bowl of porridge and some roasted rabbit. But she couldn't even make eye contact with me without blushing furiously. Husband, I brought you food. Please eat. I smirked. Wife, come here first. She took 2 steps toward me and instantly froze up. Husband. Wait. What are you trying to do? I threw off the blanket and lunged forward, and she instantly bolted. She literally fled the room like I was some kind of apex predator. From right outside the door, her voice came drifting back, sounding super high-pitched and incredibly flustered. Husband. My body is sore. Please, just wait until tonight. I playfully offered to give her a massage, but she just stomped her foot, pouting that she wasn't speaking to me anymore. With that, she scurried around the corner, walking exactly like a cowboy who had been riding a horse for 3 days straight. Every single step was a struggle, super stiff and looking completely miserable. I peeked through the cracked door, watching her practically waddle away, and I almost choked trying to hold in my laugh. I mean, I genuinely felt bad for her, but at the same time I felt like an absolute god. Is that bad? Yeah, that's probably terrible. Anyway, I scarfed down breakfast, remembered I literally had a hit list to clear today, and immediately locked back into cold-blooded assassin mode. Over at the blacksmith shop, the place was absolutely bumping. Forge blazing, sparks flying everywhere, and hammers clanging non-stop. The villagers were grinding hard, pumping bellows and mass-producing crossbow parts. Linger was running the whole show, like a pint-sized general barking orders at every station, double-checking everyone's work. Can you pump out 10 crossbows? By tonight? I asked. She puffed out her impressive chest confidently. By sundown, guaranteed. As long as we have the materials. We're good on that, Sister Chien. Already took a crew up the mountain to harvest wood. First thing this morning. Who'd she take with her? Xiao Long the cripple, Li Fushin, and... She paused to think. Oh, and Sun Ping and his wife. Perfect. The rats were exactly where Sister Chien wanted them. I grabbed Xiao Wu, sent her back home to grab some food, and then made a beeline for the mountain. The second I stepped out of the village, my expression turned ice cold. These 2 worthless traitors had sat at my table, eaten my food, and sworn loyalty straight to my face, all while plotting to sell me out for 20 measly taels. Today they were going to learn the ultimate price of betrayal. But man, this mountain was massive and a total maze. Paths were splitting off in every direction. 0 signs, just an endless sea of trees. I had absolutely no clue where Sister Chien's group was. But just then, Li Fushin came walking down the path, lugging a massive log on his shoulder. I instantly ducked into the brush, waited for him to pass, and then tracked his trail straight up. Absolute genius. Sister Chien was sending people down one by one, meaning each person's trail was basically a breadcrumb, leading me straight to the target. That woman was operating on some 500 IQ strategic level that, honestly, kind of terrified me. On my way up, a wild rabbit suddenly darted out of the grass. Pure instinct took over, thwack, an arrow right through the skull. I strapped it to my belt and kept pushing forward. And wouldn't you know it, a wild pheasant popped up next. But I ignored it and walked right past. No time for window shopping when you've got a date with death. The cripple headed down next, hauling another log. I avoided him and tracked his trail right back up. The mountain paths were getting narrower, and the trees way denser. Sister Chien was smoothly thinning out the crowd, sending everyone away until only our 2 targets remained. Finally, I caught sight of them through the thick brush. Sister Chien, Xiao Long, Sun Ping, and Yang Yueguai, all busy working the timber line. I carefully slipped behind a massive trunk, positioning myself right in Sister Chien's line of sight, while staying completely invisible to the rest. She was waiting for me, our eyes locked for a split second. No nuts, no guaps, just pure, unspoken understanding. between two partners who had spilled blood together, escaped hell together, and shared lethal secrets in the dark. She turned back to the group and made her play. Xiaolong, let's divide and conquer. Uncle Sun Ping, Aunt Yueguai, you two come with me. Smooth as silk. She was isolating the targets from any potential witnesses, luring them deeper into the unforgiving mountains. She was walking them straight into the jaws of the very man they wanted to destroy. They had no clue the helpless lamb was actually a wolf, and this forest was about to become their final resting place. Sister Qian led Sun Ping and his insufferable wife, Yang Yueguai, further into the wilderness, while I trailed behind them like a vengeful phantom. Yang Yueguai did nothing but whine the entire trek up. Her legs ached. She was exhausted. She wanted to turn back, where even were the trees. Just endless complaining. At one point, she straight up plunked herself on the dirt, and threw a tantrum, refusing to budge, unless Sister Qian promised her 2 rabbits, instead of 1. Xiaolong looked ready to knock her out cold right there, but Sister Qian held him back and agreed to the extortion, just to keep the execution on track. Xiaolong guided the rest of the villagers down a completely different path, which played perfectly into our hands. Sister Qian kept marching with the 2 traders, until they reached a spot so deep, and so isolated that no one would ever hear them scream. Yang Yueguai was still whining and complaining about the absolute trash wood quality around here, when I stepped right out from behind a tree, with my crossbow locked and aimed straight at them. Sun Ping.
Yang Yueguai.
Your free trial of living has expired. Sun Ping spun around, saw the deadly weapon and instantly started shaking, like a terrified, soaking wet dog in the freezing cold. Yang Yueguai desperately tried to dive behind Sister Qin, only to realize, to her absolute horror, that Sister Qin was already pointing a second crossbow right at her face, with an expression icy enough to freeze the sun itself. Nowhere to run, absolutely nowhere to hide. 2 loaded crossbows, absolutely 0 escape routes. Just as Yang Yueguai opened her mouth to shriek, I released a bolt straight into her open throat, piercing right through the back of her skull. She collapsed instantly, like a puppet with its strings cut. Totally silent.
Instant.
Game over. Now, I know that sounds incredibly brutal, and yeah, it was, but this woman was actively plotting to rob my family blind, and leave us all for dead in this brutal world, all while smiling to our faces and eating our food. Needless to say, my bank of sympathy was entirely empty. Sun Ping's knees buckled and he slammed to the ground, literally pissing his pants right then and there. With 0 dignity left, he started spilling everything, desperately crying that it was all his wife's master plan. He confessed she had a thug brother named Yang. Crooked Mouth, and they'd hired local goons to raid my house. Tonight, at the stroke of midnight, they were scheduled to meet the crew of bandits at the entrance of the village to guide them right in. Sister Qin pressed the crossbow closer, demanding details. 3 guys, coming tonight at midnight, at the village gate. I was just gonna be the inside man. He begged and sobbed for his pathetic life, promising to double-cross them and help us fight the bandits, swearing on his ancestors' graves he'd never betray me again. I looked down at this absolute joke of a man who had knelt in town, swearing eternal loyalty to me, only to instantly spin around and plot my execution. All for a quick buck. Sun Ping, I muttered. I gave you a golden ticket, and you threw it away. Thwip. Faceplant. Finished. Sister Qin quickly checked both of their pulses, confirmed they were permanently offline, and we got to work. We dragged them over to a hidden ravine near a steep cliff. We found a spot with soft soil and dug out a 5-foot pit. First, we ripped the arrows out of the bodies, so nothing could be traced back to us, then tossed the corpses straight in. We filled the hole and made sure the ground looked untouched. Finally, we scrubbed every single drop of blood off the trail. 2 traitors, 1 grave, and absolutely 0 evidence. Sister Qin immediately laid out the play. I go hunt some game, head back to the village, and claim I spotted wild tigers up on the mountain. She would do the exact same thing on her end. That way, when people eventually noticed that Sun Ping and his wife had vanished, everyone in the village would just assume they got turned into tiger food while wandering too deep into the woods. Clean, simple, and completely airtight. This woman was a straight-up criminal mastermind, disguised as a gorgeous hunter. And honestly, it was getting terrifying, just how attractive I found that. You're a genius, Sister Qin. She actually blushed. I wanted to pull her in for a hug, But I totally chickened out. We agreed to meet up tonight, right before midnight under the village banyan tree, to ambush young Crooked Mouth and his 2 lackeys. That's 3 more problems we needed to solve. Before the sun came up, I ventured deeper into the woods to bag some actual prey, to back up my alibi, while Sister Chin split off her own way. Just your typical morning of murder, body disposal and strategic planning, shared between 2 people, who clearly had some serious sparks flying between them. Meanwhile, and I had no idea this was happening, Su Yao was currently making her grand entrance, galloping back into the village on her majestic white stallion. She looked like a literal goddess in purple leading a full cavalry charge. Hooves were thundering, dust was kicking up everywhere, and local kids were running through the streets screaming, "The rich lady is back! Quick! Someone go grab the dummy! Her leg must have fully healed 2 days ago." I did tell her she'd be back on her feet in 48 hours, and look at that. She was right on schedule. She was probably carrying those 20 taels of silver. She owed me for fixing her up. You have to respect her punctuality. She rode straight to my front door, where he was outside practicing his archery. My wife, the exact same woman who could barely even hold a bow last week, was currently letting arrows fly in the courtyard, like a seasoned warrior preparing for battle. Which honestly wasn't far from the truth. With bandits invading in 3 days, we all needed to lock in. Just then, Su Yao dismounted her horse with that effortless grace that made every single movement look like a masterpiece. Turns out, she'd done some major digging since our last chat, and now knew every little detail about my wife. Her family name, her background, the entire backstory. "Lady Zhang, we meet again," Su Yao said, bowing politely, with a smile that somehow managed to be incredibly sweet yet totally calculating. All at once, Jia matched her energy and smiled right back. "Lady Su, I assume you're here to see my husband." Su Yao's composure visibly cracked for a split second, completely thrown off by my wife's absolute directness. Her eyes immediately darted to the door behind Jia, clearly trying to peek inside to see if I was there. Seriously, this ultra-wealthy, high-class baddie had traveled all the way back to our rundown mud village, just to track down a broke, scrawny doctor living in a shack. And she wasn't even trying to play it cool anymore. So now, there were 2 stunning women standing outside my house, my lethal wife and a gorgeous, loaded heiress, both demanding to know where I was. And where was I? Up on a wild mountain, covered in sweat, dirt, and blood, with 2 freshly buried bodies right behind me, rabbit guts smeared all over my hands, and busy plotting my next midnight ambush. My life had officially become the most chaotic web novel plot ever, and it was getting wilder by the second. Jia casually told Su Yao that I was up in the mountains hunting. Su Yao glared at the mountain peaks, like they personally insulted her family, and boldly announced she was heading up to find me herself. Xin Xiao tried to warn her about the dangerous predators lurking up there, but Su Yao instantly silenced her with a single flick of her wrist, marching a whole 10-man squad straight into the wilderness, just to hunt down a simple village doctor. Talk about obsession. This girl was absolutely determined to get her hands on me, whether I liked it or not. Meanwhile, I was deep in the forest, living my absolute best life. I'd already bagged 4 fat rabbits, 2 wild chickens, and a stunning, rainbow-feathered bird. My belt literally looked like a pet store had just exploded on it. I was thinking, man, what a massive haul. Time to pack it up and head home. But right then, a frantic squealing echoed through the woods. And we're not talking about some cute piglet, this was a wild boar, which literally meant free bacon. So, naturally, I threw all logic out the window, and bolted straight toward the noise, like a man completely possessed by the gods of pork. I stayed low, moved fast, and kept my eyes peeled for any movement. I was a high-tier predator stalking my prey, super stealthy, super professional. But when I peeked around a tree, I found something infinitely better than a regular boar. This absolute unit of a leopard had pinned down a wild boar, the size of a literal sedan. And God, this leopard was breathtaking. Gorgeous golden fur covered in pitch-black spots, looking like someone had splattered expensive ink all over it. Pure, raw muscle rippling beneath its coat, with its jaws locked tight around the boar's throat. Now, the boar was built like a literal tank with fur, sporting deadly tusks that could easily disembowel a horse. It was thrashing and screaming, but the leopard already had it dead to rights. Blood was spraying from the boar's neck, like a ruptured pipe. Double jackpot. a premium leopard pelt and a massive feast. Talk about Christmas coming early. I lined up my shot and put an arrow clean through the leopard's skull. It collapsed off the boar, twitching its last on the forest floor. I was absolutely thrilled. A flawless leopard pelt alone would fetch a massive fortune, and that mountain of boar meat would feed the entire village for days. But just as I stepped forward to claim my prize, every single hair on the back of my neck stood straight up. You know that exact feeling, right? When a colossal, starving monster is staring directly at you. That ancient primal alarm bell in your lizard brain. Screaming, "Hey idiot! You are definitely not the apex predator here." I slowly looked up, and yep, a tiger. Because of course there'd be a tiger. And this beast was gargantuan. It had that iconic king crest etched right onto its forehead, like a royal stamp of death. Its stripes practically glowed, and its legs looked like solid concrete pillars. Its eyes locked onto me with a chilling focus that said, "You look like a fantastic snack." Probably smelled the blood and came to steal the boar, too. Two top-tier hunters chasing the same meal, except now the much bigger one was looking at me, like I was the perfect appetizer. I panicked, let loose an arrow and missed. The tiger lunged straight at me. I fired again, but the arrow only grazed its neck, doing absolutely nothing to slow it down. Two missed shots. My hands were shaking like crazy. My aim was absolute trash. And now several 100 pounds of striped death was airborne, lunging straight for my face. I tripped backward over a rock and wiped out hard, flat on my back with a useless crossbow. The tiger was literally flying over me. This was it. This was how Iwei's story ends. Not peacefully in bed surrounded by beautiful wives, but totally alone on some mountain, getting devoured like a human snack. But then thwack. An arrow materialized in the tiger's skull like magic. Its massive body convulsed midair, but pure momentum kept it flying, and it crashed straight down on top of me. Those massive, open jaws stopped literally inches from my nose. Hot, putrid tiger breath blasted my face. As the beast twitched and spasmed while I lay there utterly paralyzed, staring into the throat that almost became my grave. Suddenly, a shadow darted in, and drove another arrow deep into the tiger's skull, just to make sure it was dead. I looked up to see Sister Chin standing over me, her crossbow smoking, chest heaving from sprinting to save me, looking like an absolute action hero, walking away from a massive explosion. "Are you okay?" she asked, hauling me to my feet, and frantically checking me over, patting down my arms and chest. So, I did what any brave, hypermasculine, tiger-slaying warrior would do. I threw myself into her arms, and clung to her like a terrified toddler. "Sister Chin, I almost died. Thank you, thank you, thank you." She held me for a second, probably out of sheer shock rather than actual affection, before dragging me away from the carcasses, just in case other predators were lurking nearby. "What are you even doing this deep in the mountains? Even I don't venture up here." "I was hunting a wild boar." She just stared at me, like I was the dumbest genius she had ever met in her life. But then, she pointed out the insane silver lining. I had somehow bagged a leopard and a tiger in a single run. That was absolutely wild. Plus, we could use the tiger to back up our cover story. About Sun Ping and his wife getting eaten. Talk about killing two birds with one stone. And a couple of apex predators. As we started making our way down the mountain, she suddenly stopped and asked, "Hey, Linger said you made a killing-selling wild ginseng. Wanna make even more?" My ears immediately perked up, like a golden retriever hearing a treat bag crinkle. Absolutely. What did you find?" "Follow me." She led me straight to the edge of a sheer cliff. I peeked over the edge, and my jaw straight up dropped. Sprouting from a dead tree trunk jutting out of the rocky wall was an absolute unit of a fire lingji mushroom, and this beast was literally the size of a dinner plate. It had a vibrant, fiery red cap with insane, intricate patterns, and edges curling with age. The thick stem was rooted deep into the decaying wood. This legendary herb had to be at least a century old. In terms of medicinal value, this single mushroom was worth more than everything I'd raked in over the past week combined. The only reason no one had harvested it yet was because it was hanging over a vertical drop that would easily plunge any normal climber to their death. Plus, most of the local villagers had no idea what it even was. Sister Chin noticed my drooling expression and smirked. "I'll climb down and grab it for you." "No way, that's way too risky. Let me go." We quickly gathered some wild vines, braided them into a makeshift rope, and anchored one end to a solid tree. But before I could even make my move, Sister Chin grabbed the other end, and wrapped it tightly around her waist. She was too fast for me to stop her, and that's the exact moment my brain completely short-circuited. Because Sister Chin, in her skin-tight hunting gear, looping a rope around her hips, was giving me a front-row, ultra-high-definition view of her absolute best assets. That snatch-sized waist, legs that literally went on for days, and dangerous curves, that her outfit was fighting for its absolute life to contain. So there I was, gripping a rope, unapologetically staring at this gorgeous woman's backside on a cliff, surrounded by a pile of dead predators we just slain, with two freshly buried bodies just up the trail, a deadly midnight ambush I still had to plan, a wealthy heiress currently hunting the mountain to find me, and a beautiful wife waiting at home, whom I had left walking a little funny this morning. Yep, just another completely normal Tuesday. Sister Chin finished securing the knot around herself, shutting down my protests with a confident, "Don't worry, I've got this. Just yank the mushroom up once I'm done." With that, she clamped a knife between her teeth like a literal pirate, dropped low, and started spider-crawling down a vertical cliffside. Honestly, it looked like gravity was just a suggestion she chose to ignore. I lay flat on my stomach, watching her scale down, my heart absolutely hammering while I did zero to help. The moment she reached the fire Lingji, she anchored herself against the stone wall, and began carving the prize away from the dead bark. Minutes felt like hours, but she finally secured it to the vine and gave me the signal. I hauled the haul up over the ledge, and the sheer aroma almost knocked me out. It released this intense, overwhelmingly potent medicinal fragrance that basically screamed, "Yeah, I'm worth way more than your entire life savings." But then, a shriek pierced the air, and not the good kind. It was the something went horribly wrong kind of scream. Panicking, I whipped my head over the cliff edge. A vibrant, neon-green bamboo pit viper, insanely venomous and aggressively pissed off, was literally dangling from her hand. The lethal stalker had already sunk its fangs into her neck. 2 clean puncture wounds, and the flesh around them was already bruising a nasty purple. She yeeted the snake into the empty abyss, but the damage was done. Halfway up her desperate climb, her strength evaporated and her grip began to fail. The neurotoxin was kicking in fast. I threw the vine over my shoulder, dug my boots deep into the stone, and transformed myself into a human winch. She scrambled blindly against the rock face, as I pulled with every ounce of muscle I possessed. When she finally collapsed over the crest, the bite mark had decayed to pitch black, and her body was scorching with fever. "Save me, Yue!" There was zero time to grind herbs or prep medical gear. I locked my mouth directly onto her neck, and began aggressively sucking the lethal venom out. Like my own life hung in the balance. Which technically it didn't, but hers totally did, so we're matching that same frantic energy. I spat out mouthfuls of black, tainted blood. 3 separate times before it finally ran crimson again. She was shivering violently, her eyes wide, letting out these incredibly delicate whimpers that I was absolutely 100% not going to process right now. Instead, I bolted straight into the thick brush, and aggressively scavenged every square inch within 50 meters, finally tracking down some half-lotus herb to neutralize the residual bite. First, I grabbed some 7-leaf flower to neutralize the venom, chewed it down into a thick paste, and slapped the leafy mush directly onto her open wound. She let out a soft sigh of pure relief as the cooling sensation kicked in. Next, I yanked some white snake-tongue grass out of the dirt, and shoved it into her hands. "Boil this into a tea the second you get home. It'll flush out whatever poison is left in your system." "How are you holding up?" "Honestly, like my bones have been replaced with wet noodles." "Alright, fair enough. Hop back on." At this point, I was loaded up like a literal pack mule. Fresh game was dangling from my belt. A massive fire Lingji mushroom was strapped to my hip, and I had 2 heavy crossbows, all of her gear, and her entire body weight on my back. I was easily hauling, roughly 3 times my own weight, surviving purely on the fumes of yesterday's ginseng chicken soup. Her warm body pressed tight against my spine, her breath lightly tickling my ear, and she smelled like a wild mix of sweet forest flowers, and a terrifying near-death experience. "Thank you, you. Don't sweat it. Besides, you only ended up down there trying to grab my mushroom. That wasn't on you. I'm the one who was careless enough to touch the snake." Suddenly, roar. We both instantly froze. That was a tiger's roar, and it came from right ahead, completely blocking our only path down the mountain. Is there any other way? I whispered. She quickly scanned the rugged terrain and shook her head. Any detour would take twice as long and was bound to be way more dangerous. Stay put. I'll go deal with it. But she tightly gripped my shirt from behind. No way. I'm coming with you. I figured even with her noodle arms, she could still pull a trigger. So, I shifted her to my side, braced her with one arm, and we silently crept forward together through the thick brush. Except, there weren't one but two tigers. Yep, because apparently this godforsaken mountain had a buy one, get one free special on apex predators today. Sister Chin leaned close and whispered in my ear. We take one each, and straight for the head. One shot, one kill. In perfect sync, we slowly raised our crossbows. We locked eyes, gave a sharp nod, and fired. My bolt zipped through the air and drilled clean, right through the first tiger's skull. The massive beast collapsed like a furry landslide, giving one final, violent twitch on the forest floor. Talk about a total miss for her career highlight. Sister Jean's arrow sliced straight past Tiger number 2's ear, by literally a single inch. And honestly, the beast was not having it. It let out a roar like 1,000 demonic cats, and locked onto us like a heat-seeking missile. Sister Jean absolutely fumbled the reload, her poisoned, trembling hands failing to pull the lever. Meanwhile, this monster was closing the gap fast. 30 meters, 20, 10, and she's just frantically slapping her weapon, like it personally owed her cash. So I whipped my crossbow around and hip-fired. Boom! Direct hit straight into the tiger's skull. It got shut down mid-air and face-planted hard, sliding through the dirt. So I immediately double-tapped it with another bolt before it even stopped twitching. That's 4 apex predators down in 48 hours. At this rate, I'd single-handedly drive them to extinction by Thursday. Right then, Sister Jean's legs gave out. I caught her right before she hit the dirt, threw her over my shoulder, and sprinted down that mountain like my life depended on it, not once looking back. Literally every shadow looked like incoming claws, and every rustle of leaves sounded like snapping fangs. Yeah, I was completely done with this place. Me and this mountain were officially beefing, and I was out. Way down at the bottom, Suyao and her ridiculously fancy squad were just chilling at the base of the trail, staring up with pure anxiety. Apparently, Xin Xiao was having a total mental breakdown, begging Suyao to retreat because of the killer tigers lurking above, insisting they were all doomed. Meanwhile, the exact guy Suyao came to find was currently hauling but down that very mountain, with a poisoned chick riding piggyback, 4 dead rabbits swinging from his waist, a slaughtered leopard and 3 dead tigers in his wake, a legendary 100-year-old mushroom, worth a massive fortune bouncing against his hip, and 2 freshly deleted traitors, rotting away in a shallow, makeshift grave up the trail. Honestly, if she had any clue what kind of morning I'd had, she'd either have proposed to me right there on the spot, or sprinted screaming back to the safety of the city. And honestly, could have gone either way. I came charging straight down that mountain, carrying Sister Chien right on my back, with dead game dangling from my belt, and a legendary fortune mushroom strapped to my hip. Honestly, I looked like an absolute madman, who had just survived 3 hardcore action movies, back to back. But guess who's just chilling at the base of the mountain? Suyao and her entire squad of elite bodyguards, staring up at the woods like it's a haunted house. The second Suyao spots me, she yells, "Look, it's Master Yi," and bro, her face completely lit up, like it was Christmas morning and she just got everything she wanted. Her leg was clearly 100% healed. She was standing perfectly straight, walking totally fine with 0 limp whatsoever. My 2-day guarantee? Absolute facts. Master E, what on earth were you doing up there? Oh, you know, just hunting. Xian Xiao steps forward, visibly shaking. Wait, are there actual tigers up there? Did you run into any? I kept a total poker face. Not just one. Try 3 apex tigers plus a giant leopard. Every single person in Suyao's crew instantly turned pale. It was hilarious, like watching a row of dominoes fall. Except instead of plastic blocks, it was the literal soul leaving 10 bodies all at once. The guards immediately swarmed around Suyao, trying to act like a human shield. Xin Xiao starts screeching that they need to evacuate right now. Nightblade goes into full-on tactical military mode, rambling about how a single tiger is a threat level midnight, let alone 3 of them and a freaking leopard. Chill, I said. They're not gonna hurt anyone. Xin Xiao looks at me like I've completely lost it. Are you insane? They're man-eating beasts. Pretty hard to eat people when you're a rug. Complete silence. Then Sister Qian chimes in as I set her down. He actually soloed all 3 tigers and the leopard. I quickly tried to play it cool. Hey, we took him down together. But of course, nobody bought it. Xin Zhao's face twisted into that classic, salty look she always gives me when she thinks I'm capping. Which, to be fair, is basically whenever I breathe. 1 tiger? Maybe I'd believe that. But 3 tigers and a leopard? There's no way that's physically possible. Go check it out yourself then. She processed that for about 5 seconds, then grabbed Night Blade and 4 guards to go see, and marched straight up that mountain, fueled by the pure determination of a woman out to expose a liar. Every single step was calculated, every glance hyper-suspicious, like she was just waiting for a tiger to pounce and validate her entire skepticism. Meanwhile, Suyao stayed behind with the rest of the guards, staring at me with this unreadable and completely cryptic expression. It was somewhere between intense curiosity and something way warmer. So we waited. Birds were chirping, the breeze was blowing, and I was desperately trying to ignore my throbbing legs. Suddenly, Xian Xiao came scrambling back down the mountain, completely out of breath, her face looking absolutely stunned. Suyao rushed over to meet her, asking for the verdict. Xian Xiao nodded so violently her neck probably cracked. 3 massive tigers, she gasped. 1 giant leopard, and a wild boar the size of a literal cow. Suyao slowly turned to look at me, and the sheer admiration dripping from her eyes was thick enough to spread on toast. Master Yi, you truly are a divine archer. Night Blade and Xian Xiao just exchanged a look that basically said, what species of monster is this guy? Their entire vibe toward me instantly shifted from deep suspicion to something bordering on pure awe, which honestly felt incredible. After being dragged as a total fraud and a cheap scammer for 2 straight days, I just flashed a modest smile, suggesting we head down to the village. Sister Qin then whispered that she'd gather the villagers to haul the massive kills down, and then shot Suyao one final, complicated look before walking away. I definitely caught that flash of mixed emotions crossing her face. Maybe it was pure jealousy, maybe fierce protectiveness, or maybe just the snake venom making her toxic and cranky. It was always hard to tell with that woman. Right then, Suyao handed over 20 taels of silver for curing her leg, and I pocketed that cash with zero hesitation. My running total for the week? I officially had more money than most people in this village would ever see in 10 lifetimes. Not bad for the supposed village idiot. Miss Su, you didn't travel all this way just to pay me back, did you? I asked. She just flashed that calculated, elegant smile and replied, let's discuss that inside. We started making our way back to my place, and literally within 30 seconds, the entire village completely swarmed us. Kids were spawning out of thin air, like wild mushrooms after a heavy rain. Big brother Wei, is it true? Did you seriously take down more tigers and a leopard? How are you so OP? Tell us everything. I just mumbled some half-baked answers, while trying to push my way through the crowd. Meanwhile, in the distance, Xiao Long was already leading a crew of 20-plus villagers up the mountain, armed with ropes and carrying poles to haul back my massive haul. Honestly, this kid went from wanting to stab me to literally running my logistics department. Talk about a top-tier character arc. But then, my eyes locked onto Ge, standing right outside our house. She was wearing a simple dress, yet somehow she looked like the most breathtaking woman on the planet. Her skin was practically glowing. Our eyes met across the chaotic crowd, and for a split second, all the background noise just faded away. She came rushing over to me like a happy little bird, instantly checking me over to make sure I wasn't hurt, her hands frantically scanning my chest and arms. Husband, you're finally home. The kids just came running over and said, you hunted 3 more tigers and a leopard. Her expression shifted from pure shock to overwhelming pride and absolute adoration in a span of 2 seconds. Husband, you are absolutely incredible. Of course, Suyao chose this exact moment to step in, with a highly polished, elegant smile. Miss Jiang, your husband literally soloed 3 tigers and a leopard in a single trip. Ji Yi's gaze immediately flicked to Suyao, then back to me, then right back to Suyao. I could practically see the gears turning. Behind those beautiful eyes, this stunning, wealthy heiress, was alone with her husband on a deserted mountain, smiling warmly at him and showering him with praise. She was clearly interested. Suddenly, the temperature dropped below freezing. Now, I might not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but I definitely know a ticking jealousy bomb when I see one. I immediately threw my arm around Ji, pulled her close, and made the introduction, as loud, clear, and possessive as humanly possible. Miss Su, let me properly introduce you to my wife. Meet my wife, Zhang. Yeah, my wife. I said it loud and I said it proud. I even held her close while saying it, just so there would be absolutely zero doubt about who belonged to whom. Hearing this, Zhang melted instantly. Suyao's flawless smile didn't fade, but something in her eyes completely shifted. It wasn't defeat, it was more like a grandmaster, acknowledging a brilliant chess move. Now 2 absolute stunners were staring right at me. One, my actual wife. The other, my high-stakes business partner. Both of them had the power to make my life heaven, or an absolute living hell, entirely depending on how I handled the next 5 minutes. Flashing a safe smile at both, I carefully walked toward my front door, like a tightrope walker balancing over a massive canyon filled with raging fire. Suyao scanned my wife up and down, like she was dissecting the fine print of a contract. Meanwhile, Zhang, blissfully oblivious to the heavy tension, was just beaming with pure joy from that intro. She grabbed my crossbow and gear, happily carried them inside, and came back out to unload all my hunting loot, including that legendary fire Lingji mushroom. Man, this woman was a literal one-person carry crew. I gently told Zhang that Suyao and I needed to talk private business inside. She took one look at the rich heiress, gave a sweet nod, said, "Okay," and walked away without a single objection. My wife was either incredibly trusting or terrifyingly confident. Either way, I was profoundly grateful and slightly sweating. The moment Suyao stepped inside, I locked the door and shut the windows for the 3rd time in 2 days. Once again, I was trapped in a locked room with a gorgeous woman. Honestly, at this point, my neighbors probably thought I was running some kind of shady, exclusive VIP clinic. Which, to be fair, I kind of was. Suyao's eyes darted to the bed, and she immediately remembered being half naked on it just yesterday, while I was jabbing acupuncture needles into her thigh. Her face flushed bright pink, but I kept my poker face on. "How's the leg? Do you need me to check it out?" She quickly shook her head. Her leg was perfectly fine, and that wasn't why she was here. And just like that, her cold facade completely shattered. Her voice started cracking, her eyes welled up, and right there, Suyao, this insanely proud, untouchable ice queen, heiress, who literally rolls up with an elite security detail on white horses, straight up bursts into tears inside my cramped, run-down shack. Turns out her dad was on his deathbed. Some bizarre, mystery illness was aggressively draining his life force. He was completely bedridden from constant exhaustion, suffering from brutal night sweats that soaked through his clothes, zero appetite and extreme rapid weight loss. He had severe abdominal pain, a ghostly pale face, purple, oxygen-deprived lips, and constant vertigo. Every legendary, high-tier doctor in the region had already examined him, and every single one of them dropped the same bomb. It's incurable, he's terminal, and it's time to start saying your goodbyes. But hearing this, my high-level medical brain instantly kicked into overdrive. These symptoms practically screamed a massive qi and blood deficiency, a complete collapse of his yin-yang balance, severe organ failure, and honestly a high probability of foul play via poisoning. Now, I kept that lethal poisoning theory to myself for the moment, but my eyes slowly drifted over to that massive fire Lingji mushroom just chilling in the corner of my room, and a massive light bulb suddenly exploded in my head. That 100-year-old cheat code of a plant was literally nature's ultimate, overpowered reset button. We're talking insane qi restoration, total yin-yang rebalancing, hardcore detoxification, and rapid organ regeneration. If absolutely anything on this earth could save her father, it was this god-tier mushroom. Still, I had to play it smart and cautious. If every elite doctor in the land had already thrown in the towel, I couldn't just casually promise a miracle cure either. But before I could even finish my thought, she dropped straight to her knees. This ultra-wealthy, elite princess, dressed in fine silks, that literally cost more than my entire house, was kneeling right there on my dusty, rough wooden floor, begging a random village doctor like me to save her dad's life. I immediately reached down and pulled her back up. Please stand up, Miss Su. I'll come take a look at him, but I need you to understand. There are absolutely no guarantees. Instantly, her tears vanished, transforming into the most breathtaking, radiant smile I had ever seen in my life. It was like watching a violent storm, clear into pure sunshine in 2 seconds flat. When can we leave? She asked. Right now. Your father's condition sounds incredibly critical, so literally every second counts. The sheer, overwhelming gratitude beaming from her eyes was almost too much to handle. As we stepped outside, she immediately decided to drop another absolute casual bombshell on me. Master E, I want to buy all those tigers, and throw in that leopard too. She turned to her assistant. Chun Xiao, pay him 120 silver taels right now. You could practically see the vein popping on Xin Zhao's forehead. But she didn't argue, coughing up the silver right then and there. We're talking 2 massive 50-tael ingots and 2 tens. Bro, I was literally holding more cold, hard cash than this entire broke village had probably seen in a whole decade. I immediately dragged Ji inside, slammed the door shut, and dumped the whole bag on her. A solid 120 taels, plus the extra 20 from patching up Su Yao's leg. My wife's hands were physically shaking as she held the loot, and her eyes got all wide and sparkly. It was that exact look where she's either about to burst into tears, or just straight up combust from pure hype. But look, those tigers were a team effort with Sister Chin. So I told her, yo, make sure she gets her 60 tael cut when she drops by. She nodded like her life depended on it, shoving the stack straight into our secret under-the-bed money bag, which, by the way, was starting to get heavy as hell. Then she grabbed my hand, looking all worried. Hubby, did Su Yao seriously ask you to go treat someone else? Yeah, her dad is apparently in critical condition, so I gotta ride out to town ASAP. Hearing that, her face completely fell. I couldn't help but pull her close for a soft kiss. Don't worry, babe. I'll be back before sunset. I promise. She kissed me back, her cheeks turning bright pink as she whispered, Hey, Xiao Wu isn't crashing here tonight, so come home early, okay? I get lonely without you. Bro, translation. Get your butt back here fast, because we are absolutely about to smash. Round 2 of last night's wildest activities. My blood pressure spiked so hard I almost passed out on the spot. I locked lips with her until her face was as red as a ripe tomato, and my hands low-key started wandering south. But she gently caught them with a smirk. Save it for tonight, hubby. Man, I literally had to drag myself away from her and out the door, stepping outside into the cold, clutching that precious Lingji herb and whatever tiny shred of self-control I had left, which was currently running on about 2% battery. Before taking off, I gave Ji her final marching orders. Pass out the wild boar meat to the rest of the villagers. Get those 3 massive tigers, and the leopard sent over to Su Yao's place in the city. And whatever you do, keep grinding your archery. She gave me a sharp nod like a loyal little soldier, and instantly locked in, grabbing her crossbow to start grinding. Honestly, at this rate, my girl was going to be a full-on certified lethal warrior. By the time those pesky bandits actually decided to show up. Right then, Su Yao turned to me and asked if I knew how to ride a horse. Spoiler alert, I absolutely did not. So, she ordered Nightblade to let me piggyback on his ride, which meant I spent the entire journey awkward as hell, clinging to a bodyguard's back, like a literal baby koala, super dignified, totally heroic. The guy who literally clutched 4 tigers in 2 days couldn't even ride a horse without white-knuckling another dude's waist. The entire time, mid-ride, Nightblade catches a whiff of my stacked medicine bag and sniffs. Yo, what is that? It smells insane. Lingji mushroom. His eyes instantly pop. He'd clocked it earlier and figured it was something high tier, but now he's staring at me like I'm some kind of cheat code mythical entity. Master E, your archery is straight up legendary. Your medical flex is out of this world. You are seriously built different. Now, I should have dropped some humble bars here, played it modest and kept my dignity intact. Instead, my intrusive thoughts won, and I blurted out, thanks, but honestly, my real main stat is martial arts. His head snapped around so fast. It literally spooked the horse. Wait, you know martial arts? Spoiler alert, I did not. I had 0 formal combat training. My skinny noodle arms could barely carry Sister Chin down a hill without completely folding, but my mouth was already out here writing massive checks. And somewhere in the back of my mind, future me was screaming into a pillow. So I spent the rest of the trek casually gaslighting him into believing I'm a grandmaster. Nightblade asked me to break down different fighting styles, so I just started rattling off everything I remembered from old-school kung fu movies. Back in my previous life, Long Fist is pure, aggressive power. Tai Chi uses soft deflection to shatter hard strikes. Xingyi is all about flawless structure. Baji Quan hits like an absolute explosion. And Bagua Palm is insane. Slippery footwork and constant circling. Nightblade was staring at me, like he was looking at the second coming of the god of war. His voice was literally trembling. Master Yi, you've been holding back so much hype. Please, you gotta teach me everything. Yeah, totally, man. No problem. Meanwhile, in reality, my actual combat experience maxed out at 2 years of mandatory military service. In my past life, where I did learn a few genuinely lethal moves, plus a childhood spent trying to copy Jackie Chan movies. Waking up in this new room, I realized this body was built like a straight-up toothpick. Just pure skin and bones. Honestly, I could probably explain 14 lethal ways to take down an enemy, only to get absolutely wrecked by a gentle breeze. As we rode into the city, the crowds parted for us like we were straight-up royalty. Su Yao's entourage commanded insane attention wherever they went. We're talking high-tier horses, heavily armed guards, and premium silk everything. The moment we pulled up to the Su family estate, my jaw instantly hit the floor. Massive crimson gates, stone lions the size of actual predators, and a massive plaque reading, Su Residence. Etched in calligraphy so aggressive, the brushstrokes looked like they could physically assault you. This wasn't just I made a killing selling 40 wolves rich. This was multi-generational, dynastic-level wealth. Su Yao practically glided off her mount, and immediately gestured for me to follow. We navigated through massive courtyards and grand pavilions that made my old straw hut look like a soggy cardboard box someone had accidentally stepped on. Suddenly, a young medical apprentice came sprinting toward us, his face completely pale with sheer panic. Lady Su, your father is fading fast. You need to come say your final goodbyes. Every last drop of color instantly drained from Su Yao's face. She hoisted up her high-end robes and took off running, her silk slippers slapping wildly against the stone tile. I bolted right after her, because if the old man kicked the bucket before I could even look at him, this entire journey and my master plan, to enlist her elite troops for the upcoming bandit raid, was going to be absolute toast. At the bedroom entrance, the apprentice aggressively threw his arm across my chest, acting like a power-tripping bouncer at a VIP club. He judged me hard from head to toe, noticing my dusty clothes, my scrawny physique, and the faint odor of wild tiger blood and rare herbs, before snapping, "Halt's right there, outsider." Su Yao personally requested my medical expertise. He sneered at me again, radiating pure, unadulterated contempt. Totally unnecessary. My grandfather, the legendary divine Dr. Hua, is already handling it inside. He turned his arrogant little nose up and strutted into the room. I pushed right past him anyway. I didn't endure this grueling journey, hitchhiking on someone else's horse, just to get gate-kept by a teenager with a massive god complex. Inside, it was absolute chaos. Su Yao was collapsed over her father's bedside, weeping completely uncontrollably. Meanwhile, the renowned Dr. Hua stood close by, looking tense. This guy looked ancient and grand, rocking a perfectly groomed long white beard. He was radiating that ultimate, "I've been a master for 50 years." vibe. Servants were completely swarming the place, holding towels and medicine bowls. But looking over at the bed, Sui Yao's dad looked like death had already moved in and started remodeling the house. His skin wasn't just pale, it was this ghastly, grayish-black shade that literally made my stomach drop. His breathing was so faint it could barely fog up a mirror. Suddenly, the medicine apprentice spotted me and absolutely lost it. "How did you get in here?" "Guards, throw this clown out." Instantly, 2 beefy guards grabbed my arms. I was literally half a second away from getting yeeted out of the room, when Su Yao suddenly screamed through her tears, "Stop! He's here to save my father." Boom! Everyone froze. The medical assistant, the guards, the maids, even Dr. Hua himself, all staring at me, like I was some random stray dog that walked into a palace and claimed to be a neurosurgeon. The assistant leaned into Su Yao, dripping with pure condescension. "Miss Su, there are plenty of cheap scammers out there who pretend to be legendary doctors just to steal your cash. Please don't be naive." But before I could even fire back, Old Man Su suddenly started violently convulsing on the bed. He was shaking uncontrollably, hacking up a storm, the exact kind of horrific sounds that tell you someone is officially on their deathbed. Dr. Hua barked orders at his assistant to immediately force-feed him the prepared medicine. The kid grabbed a bowl filled with a dark, murky liquid and rushed over to pour it down the old man's throat. I took one look at that brew, and every single alarm bell in my medical brain went completely off. At the exact same time. Stop! That medicine is literally going to kill him. The entire room went dead silent. The assistant froze dead in his tracks, bowl halfway to Sue's lips. Everyone stared at me like I had just insulted the Pope. The assistant scoffed, sneering at me. Oh really? Do you even know what herbs are in this? Do you even have a clue what disease he's fighting? I kept my voice dead calm. That's a warming formula. Aconite root, avodia, and dried ginger. You idiots are treating him for cold toxin poisoning. But hold up. This isn't cold toxin. Dr. Hua's eyebrows shot straight up in disbelief. He glanced back at Sue's completely purple lips, the thick white coating on his tongue, and those jagged teeth marks along the edges. The symptoms definitely scream cold toxin syndrome. But are you seriously suggesting? I didn't waste a second debating. I marched straight to the bedside, grabbed Sue's wrist and checked his pulse. Then, I ripped open his shirt to examine his chest. And right there, barely visible, unless you knew exactly what to look for, were several dark, blackish spots on his skin. They were blurry, faded, and easily missed by anyone, unless you were specifically hunting for heavy metal poisoning. Miss Sue, did your dad take any immortality pills from some sketchy Taoist priest before getting sick? Suyao blinked, racking her brain for a second, before her eyes went completely wide. Yes, he met a Taoist master who gave him a celestial pill, but he was already feeling sick before that. Did it help at all? No. He got way worse. I turned back to the room, my voice dropping with absolute gravity. Based on his pulse, the skin discoloration and his lethal reaction to that pill, your father is suffering from heavy metal poisoning. Those so-called immortality pills are literally packed with lead and mercury. They've been building up in his organs for months, completely wrecking his blood circulation and shutting his entire body down. If you force that warming medicine down his throat right now, you'll cause the toxins to hyperaccelerate, and he'll be dead within the hour. The medicine boy opened his mouth to talk back, but Dr. Hua shut him down with a single death glare. The old physician was staring at me with a look I knew all too well, the look of a master realizing he completely botched the diagnosis, and some young rookie just called him out on it. We need 3 ounces of raw licorice root, and half a pound of mung beans. Boil them into a broth and get him to drink it immediately, I commanded. Licorice will detoxify and stabilize his system, while the mung beans neutralize the mineral and chemical poisons. Together, they'll start flushing the heavy metals right out of him. The medicine boy sputtered, "Are you insane? You think beans can cure this?" I stared him down with ice in my eyes. No, but those beans will keep him alive, which is plenty of time for me to actually save him, which is way more than your literal bowl of poison was gonna do. Suyao didn't waste a single second arguing. Get moving. 3 ounces of licorice, and half a pound of mung beans right now. Go. A servant bolted out of the room, like his pants were literally on fire. I turned back to Suyao. One more thing. Do you have any magnets? Suyao sent her servants scrambling, one group for magnets and the other for mung beans. Meanwhile, the apprentice stood there smirking, just waiting for me to completely embarrass myself. In front of the entire room, Dr. Hua hesitated, but finally handed over his silver needles. Even he was highly skeptical of me, but hey, at least he had the professional decency to let me try. Before his patient kicked the bucket, I immediately boiled the needles to sterilize them. The apprentice looked completely baffled by this, which honestly told me everything I needed to know about his non-existent hygiene standards. Next, I pinpointed the crucial acupuncture points on Old Man Su's body. Zhongwan to stabilize his stomach, Zusanli to boost his immune system, and Naguan to protect his heart. I drove the needles in with the kind of insane precision that would have made my past life acupuncture master literally weep with pride. Then I worked them, using advanced techniques that wouldn't be invented in this world, for another several centuries. Within minutes, thick, Cloudy sweat began to bead all over Su's skin. His deathly, ash-gray face actually started showing. The faintest hint of life. Su Yao noticed it instantly. Her crying shifted from, "Goodbye forever, father," to "Wait, is he actually pulling through?" Just then, the mung bean and licorice broth arrived. I had Su Yao feed it to her father. Spoonful by spoonful, the color rushed back to his face, and his breathing finally steadied. Then the magnets arrived. I placed them directly on his chest at the Shanzhong point, the ultimate crossroads of the body's vital energy. Honestly, I'd only ever read about this wild technique in an ancient medical text, and had never actually tested it. My real confidence level was sitting at maybe 40%, but I kept my poker face locked absolutely tight. Because let's be real, nothing kills a patient faster than a doctor, who completely panics. But then, the magnet actually worked. Or maybe everything combined just finally clicked. Either way, the deathly black tint on Su's face began to fade, like someone was slowly turning up a dimmer switch on his life. His agonizing, clenched expression finally relaxed, and his eyes fluttered open. "Yao Yao," he barely whispered. Su Yao lunged forward, grabbing his hand with a literal death grip. "Dad, I'm right here." Dr. Hua rushed over to check his pulse, and his eyebrows shot up so high, they practically launched off his forehead. "Miss Sue, your father's vitals have stabilized. He's officially out of the danger zone." Old man Su groggily scanned the room, his eyes eventually landing on Dr. Hua. "Thank you, divine Dr. Hua. You really are a miracle worker. I owe you my entire life." But give credit to the old doc. He didn't steal the spotlight. Instead, he frantically waved his hands and pointed straight at me. "It wasn't me, Master Su. This young man right here is the one who saved you." Su's gaze shifted over to me, and what he saw was just some skinny kid in dusty village clothes, clutching a bag that literally smelled like wild mushrooms. Yeah, definitely not the legendary savior you'd picture dragging you back from the brink of death. Su Yao quickly chimed in. "Dad, this is Yi-Wei. I brought him here specifically to cure you. He is absolutely extraordinary." At that, Su's eyes filled with genuine, deep respect. "Master Yi, I owe you my life. The Su family will never forget this massive debt." I warned him that the poison wasn't completely out of his system yet. He'd need 3 more days of my herbal brew, plenty of solid rest, a clean diet, and absolutely zero stress. He nodded, slowly drifting back to sleep, looking more peaceful than he probably had in months. That's when Dr. Hua turned to me, his eyes practically sparkling. "Young man, you are a literal living immortal, to have this level of god-tier medical skill at your age. I have never seen anything like it in my entire life. Please, you must visit my clinic. It would be the absolute honor of my career to host you." I casually glanced over at his assistant, medicine boy, who was just standing there in the corner, looking like he'd just been forced to swallow a whole lemon. Drowning in sheer embarrassment, Dr. Hua caught my look, and instantly snapped at his grandson. "Xiao Mu, drop to your knees and apologize to Master Yi right now." The kid's face went through 50 shades of pure humiliation. He hit the deck, slammed his forehead against the floor, and squeezed out the most painful, reluctant apology in human history. "Master Yi, I was completely out of line earlier. Please forgive me." "Get up," I told him. Honestly, watching him squirm was hilarious, but I actually had places to be. Dr. Hua practically begged me to visit his clinic, so I gave him a casual "maybe someday." With that, he finally left looking like a total fanboy, who just met his ultimate idol. Meanwhile, the medicine boy trailed behind him, radiating pure, unadulterated defeated energy. I whipped up a 3-day prescription for Su Yao, then reached into my bag and pulled out the fire lingji. I sliced the legendary herb right down the middle. Half of it goes toward her dad's recovery, and the other half is for yours truly. Look, I'm generous, but I'm not a complete idiot. That mushroom alone was worth a massive fortune, and I had my own family's future to secure. Su Yao took the prescription and the lingji, her hands trembling as she stared at them, like I just handed her her father's literal life force. She quickly passed them off to a servant to get them prepared, and we walked out of the room together. The second we hit the hallway, Su Yao called for Xian Shao. "Fetch 100 taels of silver for Master Yi. 100 taels for a single house call." Suddenly, the medical school debt from my past life felt like a distant, irrelevant memory. But before Xian Shao could secure the bag, I stopped her. Miss Su, keep your silver. I'm looking for a different kind of payment. Su Yao's eyes instantly sharpened. Name it. If it's within my power, it's yours. We need to discuss this in private. She escorted me into a guest room and shut the door. Her silhouette moved with effortless grace as she closed it, and I definitely did not stare at the way her dress hugged her curves. Nope, absolutely not. I'm a total professional here. A happily married professional, mind you, who just shared an incredibly intimate night with his wife. Literally yesterday. Focus, man. Miss Su, 3 days from now, the bandits from Poison Snake Mountain are coming. Are marching straight for my village. They're gonna pillage our food and kidnap our women. I need 20 of your absolute best elites. Hearing this, her delicate brow furrowed. Master E, those bandits are literal monsters. Even the Imperial Army can't handle them. How are my people supposed to help? My entire village is locking and loading. I replied, we've got rapid-fire crossbows. Add your 20 elites, and we'll have more than enough firepower to wipe those thugs off the map. But she still looked skeptical. I've heard those bandits are ruthless killers. Are you seriously telling me a bunch of farmers and my guards can stop them? I locked eyes with her, radiating absolute, unshakable confidence. Miss Su, I don't play around when lives are on the line. I literally hunted 4 tigers today, and I just snatched your father back from death's door. So trust me when I say I've got these bandits handled. She stared deep into my eyes, her mind clearly racing. She was torn between gratitude for saving her dad, deep respect for my skills, fear of risking her men, and calculating what this alliance could bring her. Long term, make no mistake, this gorgeous woman was a sharp business mogul, weighing the risks and rewards in real time. I held her gaze, refusing to back down. Absolutely everything was riding on this. Sure, our crossbows were in production, and the village was hyped to fight, but without her trained troops, we were basically walking into a slaughter. I needed the spoiled, stunning, horse-riding princess to bet on me. A broke village doctor armed with just a crossbow and a dream. And
Su Yao agreed.
20 elite fighters would be at my village by tomorrow night, under my direct command. I wanted to hype dance right then and there, but I kept my cool and simply nodded, acting like securing military support from gorgeous heiresses was just another Tuesday. But then came the catch. Once the bandits are taken care of, you will stay at my manor for 3 days to treat my father. 3 whole days away from home, away from G, my beautiful wife, who had just discovered the absolute bliss of married life, and was eagerly waiting for my return. Chilling in a completely empty house with 0 sister-in-law drama? I was literally 3 days away from that paradise. But then Suya hit me with those puppy dog eyes, and honestly, I just asked her to lend me a literal private army. Telling her no right now would make me the ultimate ungrateful jerk. Deal. The moment I said it, her face lit up, like a beautiful flower finally blooming after a brutal winter. I'll be eagerly waiting for your victorious return, Master E. Okay, something about the way she dropped that word waiting made my stomach do a sudden, nervous flip. Nope, snap out of it. I'm a married man. A married man juggling a high-stakes side quest. Way too many female complications. And absolutely 0 time for any extra romantic drama. Nightblade and I finally rode out of the city. As we cleared the massive gates, I noticed the sun was still high in the sky. Perfect timing.
Yo, nicht blade.
Teach me how to actually ride this horse. His face instantly beamed like I just handed him a massive promotion. Of course, sire. Look right here. These are the reins. Hold them gently, like you're cradling a fragile baby bird. Pull too tight and the horse will fight you. Leave them too loose, and it'll completely ignore you. I carefully mirrored his grip, but the horse just stood there like a furry statue, looking completely unimpressed. Now, squeeze your legs gently against its belly. Firm but kind. Think of it as giving a polite suggestion. I gave it a squeeze, and the horse actually started moving. I almost lost my balance from pure excitement. Holy crap, it works. Nightblade slid to the back of the saddle and let me take full control of the reins solo. At first, I looked like a total drunkard on a rocking chair, wobbling around, violently lurching forward, and death gripping the mane for dear life. But after a few minutes, something just clicked. My body locked into the rhythm, the horse vibe-checked me and responded, and suddenly, I was actually tearing down the path faster and faster. The wind was blasting in my face, and I felt like an absolute god. But then, 3 guys jumped out of the bushes and completely ruined the vibe. Nightblade's face went ghost white. Deserters! Run! 3 military deserters stepped out, blocking our path. The leader had a gnarly scar running straight from his eye to his mouth, looking like someone had tried to rip his face open with a rusty letter opener. He was wearing a shredded army uniform covered in ghetto patches, white-knuckling a menacing spear with a jagged, corroded tip that was still packing enough heat to literally punch holes straight through you. To his left was this scrawny, bearded dude, hollow cheeks, completely bloodshot eyes, radiating the pure, unhinged energy of someone who hadn't eaten in a literal week and would standardly end your life for a single bowl of rice. Honestly, his spear was way steadier than his mental state. Then the third guy was just short, sweating bullets and clearly regretting all his life choices. His tough guy act was about as convincing as a newborn kitten, trying to roar like a lion. But just like that, they completely surrounded us. Scarface barks out, "Get off the horse! Leave the ride! Hand over your cash, or you're dead!" Nightblade and I slowly got down. He was just about to open his mouth to negotiate, when something inside my brain just snapped. Maybe it was the insane adrenaline high from clapping for whole tigers today. Maybe it was the massive ego boost from saving a dying legend and basically securing my own private army. Or maybe I was just completely done with scrubs trying to extort me. "You're seriously trying to rob me?" I said, my voice dropping to absolute sub-zero temperatures. "Do you even know who I am?" Everyone froze, including Nightblade, whose jaw had literally dropped to the floor. Scarface narrows his eyes. "And who the hell are you supposed to be? Have you boys ever heard of the Poison Snake Mountain Bandits?" The moment I said that, all 3 deserters visibly flinched. They instantly started exchanging panicked glances. Scarface licked his dry, cracked lips. "Yeah. We know they're ruthless killers. What's your point?" I stood up straight, flexing my full, honestly, not very impressive, height and announced with pure, unadulterated dominance. "I am the 5th boss of Poison Snake Mountain. You will address me as the 5th master." Cue the dead silence. Nightblade looked at me like I was casually juggling live sticks of dynamite. Then the bearded guy called my bluff. "Hold up," I heard. "Every single Poison Snake captain is a god-tier martial arts master. If you're really the 5th boss, prove it." I casually extended my hand. "Toss me your spear." He hesitated for a second, then threw it over. Bro, this thing felt like it weighed 1,000,000 pounds. My muscles immediately screamed in agony the split second I caught it, but I forced myself to grit my teeth and lock down my grip. Because in a place like this, showing weakness is basically begging to get gutted. I took a deep breath, digging deep into the absolute vault of my memories, back to the brutal military spec ops camp of my past life. I had this buddy who was an absolute god, with the Yang family's pear blossom spear. He beat those moves into my skull for months. Now every single stance, every deadly thrust, and every flashy spin came rushing right back, surging through a body that was definitely not built for this level of action. But I planted my feet anyway and locked in. Immortal points the way. I launched a straight thrust into the dead air. It was slow but bursting with raw, controlled power. Next up, parting grass to find the snake. The spearhead danced through the air like a living predator, carving sharp, whistling arcs through the wind. Then, white serpent spits venom. A barrage of rapid-fire stabs so fast the tip became a blur. My footwork was pure poetry, sliding and stomping, with every single step driving home a strike. The spear spun, slicing the very air into ribbons. The 4 guys watching were completely paralyzed, their jaws literally hitting the floor. For the grand finale, I spun around with Mountain Crusher and brought the spear crashing down from above, driving it straight into a massive boulder at my feet. Crack! The rock shattered clean in half, sending debris flying in every direction. The spear stood perfectly upright in the ruined stone, looking like some kind of reverse Excalibur. It was majestic, undeniably badass. But also, I was about to pass out. My arms were totally numb, my legs felt like straight-up jelly, and black spots were dancing in my eyes. I stumbled back a couple of steps, trying my absolute best not to faceplant, right in front of my audience. Inside, my brain was just screaming in pure panic. This body is literally made of wet cardboard. Fortunately, the deserters were way too busy, staring in horror at the demolished rock, to notice that my knees were shaking like crazy. Thank God for dramatic effects. Beat it! I roared, squeezing out every last bit of air in my lungs. Scarface nearly tripped over himself scrambling to bow. Fifth Master, please mercy. My bad. We're leaving right now. They snatched up their gear and vanished straight into the woods. So fast they literally left dust outlines behind, like a straight-up Looney Tunes cartoon. I finally let out a massive sigh of relief and wiped a literal waterfall of sweat off my forehead. Right then, Nightblade dropped to his knees, hitting the dirt road with zero hesitation. He went full-on kowtow mode. Master E, please, accept my deepest respect. I just stared down at this elite bodyguard, a professional killer, working for the wealthiest family in the entire county, groveling before a scrawny village doctor, who had just successfully bluffed 3 armed thugs, with fake bandit street cred and a borrowed spear. Get up, man. What are you even doing? On the inside, my arms were screaming, my legs were begging for an early retirement, and my brain was filing a formal HR complaint about being attached to such a pathetically weak body. But on the outside, I was the legendary 5th Master E Tiger Slayer, divine doctor, spear-splitting, rock-crushing, fake bandit lord, and the absolute coolest fraud on this side of the mountain. Now Nightblade was literally kissing the dirt, swearing eternal loyalty to me, this hardened killer, this top-tier bodyguard, to one of the wealthiest families around, was prostrating himself, just because I split a rock with a borrowed spear, while secretly trying not to pass out. Honestly, if he knew my arms felt like wet noodles, and my legs were hosting a private funeral, he definitely would have reconsidered the whole worship thing. Master E, I've never respected a single soul in my life until today. Whatever you need, you just say the word. Very touching, really. But those deserters might realize they got played and come back to kill us. Great speech, though. Now get me home before they actually change their minds. He sprang up and helped me onto the horse. I was way too jelly-legged to climb up myself, but I played it off like I was just letting him be polite. With that, we galloped back toward the village. Just as the sunset painted the sky in deep shades of orange and red, the second we pulled up, I caught sight of the absolute best view of my entire day. And nope, I'm not talking about the sunset or the mountains. It was my gorgeous wife, GE. She was standing right outside our place, looking fresh, her skin literally glowing in that golden hour light, while casually holding a crossbow. She had this total badass confidence that let you know she'd been putting in work and practicing all afternoon. Just as we rode up, she let an arrow fly at a target painted on a tree a whole 100 meters away. Boom! Dead center, absolute bullseye. An absolute god-tier shot. She immediately threw her fists up in celebration. Let's go. Nailed it again. Keep in mind, this girl was a pampered, sheltered noble lady just 2 weeks ago. Now, she's out here sniping targets from a football field away, and hyping herself up like a hardened soldier. I swear, I married an absolute weapon in human form, and I was flexing so hard with pride I could have literally exploded. The moment she spotted me on the horse, her entire face lit up like a ray of pure sunshine. Husband! She literally dropped her crossbow and ran straight for me, like I was some war hero returning home. Which, to be completely honest, wasn't even that much of a stretch, considering my day consisted of taking down 4 deadly predators, burying 2 traitors, pulling off a crazy cliffside rescue, surviving a lethal snakebite emergency, saving a dying billionaire, and surviving a spear fight with rogue deserters. She immediately jumped in to unload all my heavy gear. With the smoothest, most practiced efficiency, she slid the heavy luggage bag right off my shoulder, scanned me head to toe for any injuries, and smiled at me like I was the only person left in the universe. This girl was basically operating like a one-woman tactical support squad, and I seriously did not deserve her. Even Nightblade noticed her arrow sticking out of the distant tree, letting out a low whistle. Damn, what a shot. Truly a fitting wife for a master archer. G blushed so incredibly hard she practically turned into a pink marshmallow. Oh, stop. I was honestly just messing around. Well, if that's you just messing around. I laughed. I dread to see you actually trying. I offered Nightblade to stay over for the night, but he had to head right back out. 3 giant tigers and a leopard were waiting to be processed back at the main estate. So, I asked GE to pack him some quick road snacks. She brought out the very last of our delicious pastries. Nightblade tried to politely take just 2, but I literally forced the whole bag on him. I mean, the absolute legend had literally carried my limp body on his horse, taught me the ropes of riding and watched me commit. Literally the greatest bluff in human history. Honestly, he earned those top-tier pastries before leaving. Listen, Nightblade, I need you on this. Tomorrow, your mistress is sending reinforcement fighters to help us clear the bandits. I want you there too. He froze mid-bite, and I could literally see the gears turning in his head. The Poison Snake Mountain bandits were notorious, cold-blooded killers, throwing our ragtag village militia against actual professional criminals. Was basically just a suicide mission with extra steps. But he swallowed that pastry, and his absolute dread at the exact same time. I'll be there. He rode off into the sunset, looking completely stressed. I could tell he thought we were all 100% dead meat. And hey, he wasn't entirely wrong to panic. But I had a master plan he knew absolutely nothing about. Standing there, watching his silhouette fade away, my brain suddenly hit an unexpected, massive epiphany. Nightblade had asked for some wine earlier, and I had absolutely nothing to offer him. But that got me thinking. Every single drop of alcohol I'd tasted in this fantasy world was absolute garbage. Watered down, low percent, with a horrific flavor profile. The kind of stuff that tasted like someone had literally washed their dirty socks in slightly fermented puddle water. But what if I could brew actual, legit liquor? We're talking 5-grain spirits, properly distilled. The heavy-hitting kind that burns beautifully going down and makes you feel like a literal fire-breathing dragon. In a world where the highest shelf booze tasted like depressing trash, I would absolutely monopolize and destroy the entire market. It would literally be like bringing a stealth fighter jet to a primitive sword fight. I bolted inside and started frantically scribbling notes with a charcoal pencil. Grain ratios,
Exact fermentation temperatures.
advanced distillation mechanics, everything I could possibly remember from my previous modern life came pouring out onto the pages. Sure, my handwriting looked like a literal spider, had dropped into ink and suffered a violent seizure, but the actual blueprints were pure, unadulterated gold. But first things first, we crushed the bandits in 3 days and build our multimillion-dollar business empire right after. Priorities. G locked the door shut behind us and slammed down a massive, steaming bowl of rice, along with a massive, steaming pile of wild boar. The pork was absolute perfection. Skin glistening with a reddish-brown glaze, the lean meat incredibly tender, and the fat literally melting right off the bone. Bro, the aroma alone almost knocked me flat on my back. With pure joy, I tossed my pencil aside, grabbed a massive chunk of meat with my bare hands, and absolutely tore into it like a wild animal. The flavor instantly exploded in my mouth. So rich and insanely juicy. It was that next level, deeply satisfying taste that literally forces your eyes to shut on impact. I was shoveling rice into my face with one hand and ripping apart pork with the other. But then, I noticed her. She wasn't even eating. She was just sitting there watching me with those big, gentle eyes, swallowing her own spit, while trying to act like she wasn't starving. Hey, why aren't you eating? She shyly looked away. Please eat first, husband. I'm not hungry yet. Is there no more rice? There's plenty in the pot. I'll get you a second bowl when you're done. This girl had cooked an entire feast, served it all to me, and was planning to just eat the scraps after I finished. Again, like she didn't even deserve to sit at the same table as me. Like her own hunger didn't matter. Honestly, something inside me snapped. Go grab another bowl and chopsticks. She looked confused, but she did it. I pointed straight at the chair across from me. Sit and eat, now. But husband, I really am not. I slammed the biggest, most tender piece of pork right into her bowl. That's an order. Her eyes immediately welled up. Not from sadness, but that overwhelming feeling when someone finally treats you like an actual human being, after an entire lifetime of being treated like you're completely invisible. My chest tightened so hard it actually ached. Just sit with me and eat. Okay? She slowly sat down and picked up her chopsticks. She took a bite of the pork, closing her eyes to savor the taste. And just like that, we ate together in a warm, comfortable silence, side by side as absolute equals, just like real partners, like an actual married couple vibe sharing a quiet meal. But then, between bites, dropping her voice to a bare whisper, she dropped a casual question that literally almost made me choke on a pork bone. Hubby, when are you going to put a ring on Miss Suyao? Bro, I nearly hacked up a whole pork rib right there.
Meri Suyao.
Where on earth is this coming from? Gua dropped her gaze, staring down at the table. If you marry her, I don't mind being your secondary wife. Seriously, it's totally fine. Why would you literally volunteer to step down to second place? In your own damn house? She kept her head down, her voice completely tiny. She's way prettier than me. And richer. She can actually back you up and help you out. All I do is drag you down. Oof, something straight up shattered inside my chest. This absolutely stunning, loyal, hard-working woman who would cook my dinners, guard our cash, practice her archery all day long, and wait up for me every single night, somehow thought she was a burden. She felt like she wasn't enough. Like she literally had to offer me other women, just to justify her own existence in my life. I slammed my chopsticks down. If I actually married her, wouldn't you be heartbroken? She shook her head.
No.
Don't lie to me. I'm not lying, hubby. A man of your legendary status deserves 3 wives and 4 concubines. That's just how the world works. I'd genuinely be happy for you. Just as long as you don't sell me and my sister. I'll accept anything. That did it. I grabbed her hand, pulled her straight onto my lap, and locked her in an embrace. Her entire face went absolute supernova red. Cheeks, ears, and neck, everything blazing hot like a desert sunset. Literally having a total panic attack, she stared down at her hands, nervously twisting her shirt hem, looking so impossibly adorable, that my heart physically ached. Listen to me very carefully. I will never sell you. Never. And if I ever do marry anyone else, you are my main wife always. No matter what, don't you dare ever talk about yourself like you're less than anyone else ever again. Tears began to spill down her porcelain cheeks. Really? Do you promise? I absolute promise. She wiped her eyes, sniffled twice, and then, in the most unhinged plot twist of the entire evening, she straight up started listing other women for me to marry. Then you should definitely hurry up and lock down Suyao. Plus, Sis Chin and Linger. Oh, and my sister too. And Dong Mei. I literally lost it, laughing out loud. Babe, just because I want to marry them doesn't mean they actually want to marry me. Besides, look at our bed. Where would they even sleep? She glanced over at the tiny wooden bed that could barely fit the 2 of us. She processed this for exactly 1 second, and with a completely straight face, she said, "Tell the carpenter to build a massive bed tomorrow." This girl went from crying about being useless to blueprinting the sleeping arrangements for my future harem in under 60 seconds flat. Talk about a strategic genius. I decided to steer us back to reality. Linger had pumped out 10 crossbows today, meaning we'd easily hit 30 before the bandits rolled in. Meanwhile, the wild boar meat had been distributed to the entire village, just like I ordered, since Xiao Wu was eating and sleeping over at Linger's place. Tonight, our house was completely empty. My brain immediately did the math. Empty house? Check. No sister-in-law? Check. Wife sitting on my lap? Check. Dinner finished? Check. Energy fully restored? Oh, absolutely. Wifey, I'm well fed and bursting with energy. Time for some cardio. She glanced at the bed, then nervously peeked at the window where the sun was still setting. Hubby, it's not even dark outside yet. People passing by might hear us. Wait, is Xiao Wu coming back? Nope. She's pulling an all-nighter at Linger's and sleeping there. Perfect. We are doing this right now. Because I've got business to handle later tonight. I scooped her up and tossed her onto the bed. Before she could even protest, she squirmed for maybe half a second. Before giving in completely, I asked her if she was still sore from last night. She nodded, but then quickly shook her head. It hurt at first, but I'm fine now. And so we proceeded to have what I can only describe as a highly productive evening. Multiple rounds, absolute peak performance. By the end of it, G was sprawled out on the bed, looking like her soul had literally ascended to heaven. Her face was redder than a ripe tomato, her eyes half closed, completely wiped out. I lay right next to her, faking sleep, but honestly, I was wide awake and listening. I counted every beat of the night watchman's drum. The second watch meant it was around 9 p.m. Yang, crooked mouth, and his 2 thugs were arriving at midnight. That gave me exactly 3 hours to sprint to the village entrance and set up the perfect ambush with Sister Chin. I carefully slipped out of bed, ghosted into my clothes, and snatched my crossbow off the wall. I was halfway out the door when a massive problem hit me. If I left this door unlocked, any creep could just stroll in while she slept. I needed her to lock up behind me, which meant waking her up and explaining why I'm sneaking out at midnight. Armed to the teeth, I walked back to the bed, gave her a gentle kiss on the cheek, and lightly tickled her under the blanket. She cracked one eye open, saw me standing there fully geared up, and her face completely crumpled from pure exhaustion. Husband, I seriously can't go another round. Please go find someone else. Bro, I nearly choked trying not to laugh out loud. This poor girl legitimately thought I woke her up for round 4. Find who exactly? I don't know anyone else here. I really can't. I playfully tapped her nose. Fine, I'll go find someone else right now. Just lock the door behind me. That woke her up real quick. She bolted upright, eyes wide, instantly fully alert. You're going out at this hour to find who? Can't sleep. I shrugged. Just going for a stroll. Maybe hunt some game. She watched me strap on my quiver and calibrate my crossbow, with deep, growing concern. This definitely wasn't a man going for a casual walk. This was a man getting ready for a total bloodbath. But she was just too exhausted to argue, and honestly, she trusted me too much to interrogate me. Just be careful. And come back to me soon. I pulled open the door, turned around, and planted one final, deep kiss on her lips. Lock the door and get some sleep. I'll knock when I'm back. She stood at the entrance, watching my silhouette vanish into the pitch-black night. Then, I heard the heavy wooden bar slide firmly into place. A second later, her soft, fragile voice drifted through the dark. Gods, please, bring my husband home safe. My heart completely melted. This incredible woman was praying for me. Every single time I dove headfirst into danger, she was holding down the fort in our tiny shack, praying to the heavens to protect the scrawny idiot she'd married. Man, I didn't deserve her, but I was going to spend the rest of my life trying to. I'd barely made it 50 meters past the house when I caught it, faint footsteps stalking behind me. They were mimicking my pace, trying desperately to stay hidden. Yep, I was officially being tracked. My hand gripped the crossbow tight, and my jaw clenched. Who the hell was tailing me in the dead of night? Was it one of young crooked-mouthed scouts? A spy? Another snake plotting treason within the village? I kept moving, ears straining for the slightest sound, my mind racing with my finger resting on the trigger. Turns out, the mysterious stalker was just Dongmei. Not an assassin, not some shadowy spy, just a lonely, injured girl who'd been waiting for me all day. See, I'd promised to come treat her wounds, and then completely ghosted her. Because I was too busy saving elite high society types, and shattering boulders with spears. World's Worst Doctor award goes to me. There she was, standing under the moonlight, looking completely lost and anxious, searching for me, like a heartbroken puppy, whose owner went to the grocery store and never came back. The second I called her name, she practically jumped out of her skin, blushing bright tomato red, before whispering that she couldn't sleep. And honestly, of course she couldn't. She had agonizing, untreated injuries in places that made sitting, standing, and literally just existing absolute torture. Meanwhile, the one guy who swore to help had vanished. For an entire day, off hunting tigers. And pulling off medical miracles for multimillionaires. The guilt instantly hit me like a truck. I'd spent the whole afternoon, snatching Su Yao's father from the jaws of death, bagging enough silver to buy a whole farm, mastering horseback riding, flexing fake bandit clout to terrify deserters, and even getting in multiple, intense rounds of bedroom gymnastics with my wife. All while this poor woman sat completely alone, waiting with a bowl of medicine she'd brewed herself, solely because she genuinely believed I'd show up. Glancing up at the night sky, I realized we still had some time before the midnight ambush. Let's get those wounds treated right now. The moment I told her the medicine was ready, her face lit up, like she'd just hit the ultimate Mega Millions jackpot. Yes, I brewed a fresh batch just this afternoon. She took off sprinting toward her place so fast. I could barely keep pace. The entire village was dead silent, fast asleep, which honestly, perfect, because a guy sneaking into a single woman's house in the dead of night. Yeah, that's exactly the kind of juicy gossip the local Karens would spin into a 5-season drama. But halfway there, disaster struck. She completely lost her footing on the trail and went flying backward. Reacting on pure instinct, I caught her by the waist and pulled her flush against my chest. She looked up at me, Our faces so close I could literally count every single one of her eyelashes. Instantly, her face flushed into a shade of crimson. I didn't even think was humanly possible. Thank you, master. We finally arrived at her place, and I paused at the gate, having a massive internal crisis. Creeping into a girl's bedroom entirely alone at midnight? The optics here were absolute PR suicide. But then I remembered my wife, Gu. This is the same woman who literally just suggested I marry 5 more girls, upgrade to a king-sized bed and call it a day. So she definitely wouldn't mind. And hey, if the village busybodies started talking, worst case scenario, I just have to put a ring on Dongmei too. Honestly, my wife would probably be ecstatic. She's basically out here collecting future sister wives. Like they're rare Pokemon cards at this point. Before going in, I stashed my tactical crossbow in the bushes outside. Yeah, hard to explain why. I'm packing military-grade hardware for a standard medical checkup. With that out of the way, I followed her inside. She immediately locked the bedroom door behind us, her hands visibly trembling. The soft glow of the oil lamp bathed the entire room. In a warm, golden ambience, right there on the nightstand, sat the freshly brewed bowl of herbal medicine. I inspected it, and wow, the mixture was flawless. The consistency was spot on. This girl had clearly spent her entire afternoon meticulously crushing herbs, just waiting for me. Just waiting. All right, let's get started. Slowly, she turned her back to me and began to undo her top, revealing her bare skin under the flickering lamplight. Her body was still covered in brutal whip marks and deep bruises, but honestly, the improvement was massive. Beneath all that trauma, the healing magic was putting in serious work. For the first time, I could finally see what she actually looked like. She had this incredibly delicate bone structure, and her natural, flawless skin was finally trying to break through. It was the kind of pure, quiet beauty that absolute monsters exploit, and try to crush into the dirt, but just couldn't quite destroy. I dipped the cloth in water and carefully treated her back, wound by wound. I was being as gentle as humanly possible, but every single touch made her flinch. Even so, she stayed completely frozen and completely silent, putting her absolute trust in me. But when she turned around so I could treat her front, she instinctively covered her body with her hands, totally panicked. My face instantly turned bright red, so I pivoted and started with her face instead, just to give her a quick moment to breathe. The swelling on her face had faded like crazy, and right now, I was finally catching a glimpse of her true features, emerging from beneath all that horrific damage. Soft eyebrows, gentle, expressive eyes. This was a face meant for a girl who should be living a peaceful, happy life in some cozy, quiet village, not barely surviving the trauma of a psychopath's torture. I systematically worked my way through her injuries, face, torso, and legs. Even in the more awkward spots, I kept it completely professional and clinical. Every time I told her that her recovery was going perfectly, a tiny, fragile spark of hope would flicker in her eyes. It was like she was slowly, very carefully letting herself believe that this endless nightmare might actually come to an end. "You're looking way better," I said. "The swelling should completely vanish. In just a few more days, I'll check on you tomorrow, and after that we can switch to every other day." "Thank you, master." Her voice completely cracked as she spoke. But as I turned to leave, she suddenly jumped right in front of the door. "Master, please, is there anything at all I can do for you?" "Anything. Whatever the other village women can do, I can do too. And if I don't know how, I'll learn. Just please, let me work for you. I can't just keep taking from you without giving anything back." Hearing this, a wild idea popped into my head. "Can you kill someone?" Her eyes instantly went wide with pure terror. A violent, full-body shudder ran straight through her. But then, right before my eyes, her expression completely hardened. It was that exact same survival instinct that allowed her to endure hellish beatings, break free from captivity, and keep pushing forward against all odds. Honestly, anyone else would have quit by now. "All right, perfect. Tomorrow pull up to my place and practice archery with my wife. When those bandits raid us in 3 days, you're fighting right beside us." She nodded so fast, her head almost flew off. "I'll be there first thing. I'll find your wife right away." As I reached for the door handle again, her hand suddenly shot out and grabbed mine. I looked back, and she was staring straight at the floor, her face completely crimson, lip trembling, clearly fighting some massive internal battle. Seconds are ticking away, the oil lamp is flickering, and my midnight rendezvous with Sister Chin is creeping closer. Finally, in a voice so quiet it barely cut through the silence. Master, could you just hold me for a second? She stood there shaking, half-dressed, covered in fresh healing scars, begging the first man who ever showed her real kindness. For a single hug, not a kiss, not an overnight stay, just a simple embrace. Just solid proof that human touch didn't always have to mean pain. Bro, my heart didn't just break. It shattered into dust, before hardening into something way fiercer, fueling an absolute urge to protect. Every single person I'd taken into my strange little family, this girl, my wife, my sister-in-law Linger, Sister Chin, all of them, every last one. I still had assassins to ambush at midnight, 3 armed criminals tracking toward my village, a whole bandit army invading in 3 days, a dying tycoon waiting for medical treatment, 40 crossbows being rushed in production, a secret alcohol empire to launch, and a carpenter to hire for a much bigger bed. But right here in this exact moment, none of that mattered next to a broken girl asking to be held. I pulled Dongmei in tight. She buried her face in my neck and shivered, looking like a baby bird that finally found shelter. After a lifetime out in the freezing cold. It only lasted maybe 10 seconds, but to her, I think, it was the first time she ever felt genuinely safe. In a man's arms. As she pulled away, tears were absolutely streaming down her face. Gently tilting her chin up, I looked her in the eyes and said, "Drop the master talk. From now on, call me husband." Her eyes went so wide they honestly looked ready to pop out of her skull. Then, she shook her head frantically and took a massive stumble backward. "I'm not worthy," she stammered, but I just stepped forward, cupped her face in both hands, and planted a kiss right on her lips. Boom. Full stop. Complete and total system shutdown. She just stood there frozen like a statue, eyes wide open, her brain completely offline. She was probably questioning if this was actually real life, or just some wild fever dream brought on by inhaling too many herbal fumes. I slowly pulled back and whispered, "Just focus on getting healthy. I promise you, things are about to get so much better." With that, I turned on my heel and walked out. I snatched my tactical crossbow from the bushes and hit the road. Behind me, I heard her rushing all the way to the open doorway, watching my figure fade away into the pitch-black night. Her voice drifted through the cold night air, barely even a whisper, yet somehow perfectly finding my ears. "I'll do whatever you command. Absolutely anything. If you asked me to chop off my own arm, I'd do it without hesitation." Okay, a little intense, Dong Mei, but hey, I definitely respected the absolute loyalty. I quickly speedwalked my way toward the massive banyan tree sitting right at the entrance of the village. Crossbow loaded, murder appointment scheduled. In approximately 15 minutes, the lovey-dovey portion of my evening was officially over. It was time for the cold-blooded killing portion. But I didn't even make it to the tree. Suddenly, someone lunged from behind a pile of rocks, grabbed me, and aggressively yanked me right into the dark shadows. My finger instantly squeezed the trigger, my heart practically hammering out of my chest, when a familiar scent hit me. Sister Jean's perfume. Or honestly, maybe that was just her natural scent, which somehow always smelled like a fresh field of wildflowers, even after a grueling day of chopping firewood and literally digging graves. Under the pale moonlight, her face was mere inches from mine. She looked absolutely jaw-dropping, her lips slightly parted, and her skin practically glowing in the dark. My idiot brain immediately suggested that I should kiss her too, which I quickly vetoed on the very solid grounds that we were literally seconds away from committing a triple homicide, making the timing feel just a bit inappropriate. "They're here," she breathed out in a tense whisper. "3 of them, and they're heading right this way." I carefully peeked through a small gap in the rocks. 3 shadowy figures were creeping toward the village, looking like absolute cockroaches in human form. Their faces were wrapped tight in black cloth, with weapons strapped to their hips, moving with the hilariously over-the-top sneakiness of guys who genuinely thought they were stealth gods when they actually sucked at it. The tall one was already complaining at the top of his lungs, literally shouting in the middle of a literal stealth mission. "Crooked mouth. Where the hell is your sister and her husband? You promised they'd be waiting right here." Young Crooked Mouth just shrugged, unbothered. "Probably overslept. Let's just go check their place." That's when the short guy piped up, with the exact question that sealed all their fates. "Joe, Crooked Mouse. Is it true this YUI guy scored 2 absolute bad dimes? Crooked Mouth grinned. Oh, 100% facts. The tall guy's eyes completely lit up, with a look that made my blood boil into pure lava. He rubbed his hands together like a straight-up cartoon villain. Well, damn. We better take our sweet time, enjoying those 2 little beauties tonight. Just make sure we don't accidentally kill him too fast. He was still cackling when my arrow ripped clean through the back of his skull. No warning, no badass anime speech, no dramatic face-off whatsoever, just a sharp, whipping whistle, and then he was face-planting into the dirt, with a feathered shaft protruding right out of his head. The laughter died out, roughly 3 seconds before he actually did. Crooked Mouth and the short guy instantly froze, like someone had literally hit pause on reality. Their eyes went wide as dinner plates. Their jaws dropped, but absolutely nothing came out. For one beautiful, chaotic moment, they just stood there, trying to process the fact that their homie had spontaneously sprouted an entire arrow. Then, Sister Jean's crossbow bolt caught the short guy dead in the temple. He dropped like a sack of bricks into the dust, landing with a heavy thud that echoed through the empty village. 2 targets down in 4 seconds flat. Clean, quiet, and lethal. We worked flawlessly together, Sister Chin and I. Most regular couples bonded over cooking or romantic walks. We bonded over perfectly synchronized, cold-blooded assassination. Hey, different strokes for different folks. We burst right from behind the rocks. Sister Chin was rocking a skin-tight, all-black fit clearly meant for tactical stealth. But honestly, she looked straight off a runway. Her chest heaved from pure adrenaline, and her gaze was sharp enough to cut glass. Locking her crossbow onto Crooked Mouth, she spat, "Tonight, you're done." The dude's knees instantly buckled. He hit the dirt straight up begging, "Please don't kill me. I don't want to die." Sister Chin scanned the perimeter. No witnesses, everyone was fast asleep. She barked at him to haul the bodies up the mountain. And man, he scrambled to obey, like the most motivated pallbearer on earth. She pointed toward tall guy's corpse, the one he'd been dragging, then redirected him toward short guy with a single shout. The guy pivoted so fast, he almost gave himself severe whiplash. But as I bent down to grab short guy's body, Sister Chin reached for it at the exact same time, and our hands brushed. Her skin felt incredibly warm and soft against mine, sending a total electric shock through both of us. Our eyes locked right then and there, moonlight washing over her face, adrenaline pumping. Just 2 people covered in the aftermath of violence, sharing a bizarrely tender moment over a literal corpse. "I've got him," I murmured softly. She bit her lip, looking up at me with eyes that could seriously melt steel. Thank God the pitch-black night hid our blushing faces. Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind us. We both spun around, ready to delete whoever it was. Turns out it was just Xiao Long, holding a bow and looking totally sheepish. "Sis, I was stressed about you," he admitted. "I swear this family physically cannot let anyone do anything solo." He immediately offered to take over the heavy lifting, hoisting the body before I could even object, and marched after Crooked Mouth, like he'd been carrying corpses his entire life. Honestly, the kid was growing on me. Once we reached the mountainside, it turned out Sister Chin had already prepped a massive pit. She dug it earlier that afternoon, just because she had some downtime. Like, this woman literally spends her free time digging mass graves. I was honestly terrified, yet deeply impressed. And honestly, I was starting to question her taste in hobbies. Anyway, we finally reached the massive body disposal pit. Everything was going flawlessly, until Crooked Mouth ruined it. I'd stupidly assumed the guy was just some broken, terrified coward, but suddenly he went absolutely berserk. Whipped out a hidden dagger, snatched Xiao Long from behind, and pressed the cold steel right against his windpipe. "Drop your weapons." Sister Qian's face instantly went pale. "Don't hurt him," she cried, immediately lowering her crossbow. Her protective, sisterly instincts were totally overriding her cold-blooded killer mode. Big mistake. Crooked Mouth was cornered and desperate, and he would absolutely slice Xiao Long's throat open the absolute second he felt he had the upper hand. So, I didn't overthink. I didn't hesitate, and I sure as hell wasn't going to negotiate. I lined up the shot and sniped Crooked Mouth right through his right eye. The arrow pierced straight through his socket, and erupted from the back of his skull, with a sickening, wet crunch. His limp body tilted backward and plummeted straight into the pit, landing right on top of his dead buddies. Xiao Long just stood there, Pale as a ghost, his neck completely untouched. His brain was literally buffering. He stared down at the pit, then looked at me, then back at the pit. Sister Chien immediately rushed over to inspect her brother. He was completely fine, definitely shaken up, and traumatized, but without a single scratch on him. She wrapped him in a hug so tight he could barely breathe. Meanwhile, I kept my expression totally cool and professional, acting like pulling off a point-blank headshot on a guy holding a hostage. Was just another casual Tuesday. Let's bury them and get out of here. Surprisingly, Xiao Long offered to handle the burial himself, telling us to head back and sweep the village entrance, to clean up any blood trails. Good kid. Tough kid. Sure, he almost got his throat slit, but now he was just processing some heavy emotional trauma, while shoveling dirt over 3 fresh corpses. Sister Chien caught up to me on our walk back. I could feel her intense gaze locked onto my profile in the moonlight, studying me, seeing me in a completely different light. No longer the village idiot, nor the weak, skinny doctor, not even just the badass who killed a tiger, but as something far more dangerous. And honestly, something she was definitely into. Sister Chien kept staring at my face under the moonlight. Her eyes were practically burning holes into the side of my face, so I slowly turned around to meet her gaze. She whipped her head away instantly, looking exactly like a kid caught stealing candy. Honestly, it was equal parts adorable and terrifying. But then, she almost walked straight into a massive tree, all because she was too busy sneaking glances at me to actually look where she was going. I grabbed her hand and yanked her out of harm's way just in time. She just blinked at the trunk that had nearly completely rearranged her face, and then turned those massive, innocent doe eyes right to me. "So, what were you daydreaming about?" I asked, playing it totally innocent. Her heart was practically hammering through her chest. I could literally hear it. "You were incredibly brave back there," she whispered, and just so calm. She was talking about how I'd sniped Crooked Mouth straight through the eyeball, right while he held a knife to her brother's throat. In her mind, I was this ice-cold, calculated badass. In reality, I was running on pure, unadulterated panic, and my finger had already pulled the trigger, before my brain could even process what was happening. But hey, results are results, right? "Let me check that wound on your neck." She tilted her head back, exposing that long, elegant neck to the moonlight. The snake bite from earlier was actually healing up nicely. But standing this close, staring directly at her throat, something completely short-circuited in my brain. The soft curve of her neck, the way her pulse was visibly racing under her skin, and that faint scent of hers. It was doing some seriously unprofessional things to my train of thought. I ended up burying my nose right in the crook of her neck, and took a deep breath. "Sister Chin, you smell absolutely amazing." She nearly left her own body. A massive, high-voltage shiver shot through her from head to toe. Her face went from totally normal to absolute volcanic red. In about half a second flat, she stumbled backward, stared at me in pure shock, and then pinched my waist hard enough to leave a massive bruise. "Ow! Hey! Behave yourself!" With that, she bolted down the mountain like the ground was on fire. I immediately chased after her, grinning like an absolute idiot. Later, we checked the crime scene at the village entrance. Spotless. Not a single drop of blood. No evidence, nothing suspicious left behind. A completely flawless cleanup job. Honestly, we were getting disturbingly good at this. Once we were back on the mountain, Sister Chin suddenly pulled a hidden cloth pouch out from inside her shirt and shoved it right into my hands. "Take this 60 taels back. There's no way I can keep it." My wife had actually sent the cash earlier through Xiaolong. A cool 60 taels, which was Sister Chin's cut of the tiger and leopard hunt. But she was flat out refusing to take it, feeling like she was deeply in my debt for saving her life from that venomous snake. Plus, she'd already scored a massive share of wild boar meat from the village's latest handout. I tried to slide the money back, but she pushed it right back harder. We went back and forth like a pair of absolute goofballs, until she literally forced the pouch into my grip, giving me an icy look that screamed, "Take the cash, or I will end you in ways you can't even fathom." Accepting defeat, I quickly pocketed the silver, 60 shiny taels right back in my possession. Honestly, I needed the startup capital for my booze business anyway. But then, something went down that I am absolutely blaming on. The romantic moonlight, the wild adrenaline rush, my back-to-back near-death experiences. And the sheer reality that this badass woman had saved my life, helped me take out 5 enemies, casually dug a mass grave on her lunch break, and just handed back 60 taels of silver, all because of some sense of honor. So, I reached out, cupped her face in both hands, and planted a kiss right on her cheek. Instantly, her entire body went rigid. Her eyes popped, her jaw dropped, and her brain completely short-circuited. She stared at me like I just slapped her with a wet fish. Panicking, I immediately blurted out the first ridiculous thought that crossed my mind. Sister Chin, you've been so incredibly good to me, and I have absolutely nothing of value to offer in return. So all I can offer you is myself. She literally leapt backward in shock. You absolute idiot. What are you even talking about? What? Don't tell me you don't like me? Her face froze mid-sentence, and the question just hung heavily in the air, like a live grenade with the pin pulled. She opened her mouth, closed it, and then opened it right back up. But no words came out, because the answer was an obvious yes, and she just couldn't bring herself to admit it or deny it. Seizing the moment, I grabbed her hand. If you like me, then why do you keep running away from me? She was literally vibrating with pure, anxious energy. Cut it out. If my brother sees us. And right on cue, heavy footsteps echoed from above. Xiao Long came trudging down from the makeshift burial site. Sister Chin snatched her hand back so fast, she nearly dislocated my damn fingers. All done? She stammered, trying her absolute best to play it cool, even though her face was blushing brighter than a fire truck. Xiao Long nodded. Yeah, they're all buried. Oh, and I managed to snag this off one of them. He tossed me a stunning jade pendant. Even under the dim, eerie moonlight, I could see it radiating that deep, high-end glow that practically screams serious cash. This wasn't some cheap street market trinket. This was elite-tier quality jade, easily worth at least 10 taels at any local pawn shop. You should keep it, brother. Wait, are you sure? It's a dead man's treasure. Hey, easy money. But he just shook his head firmly. Nah, looting the dead gives me the massive creeps. Fair enough. More premium jade for me. Xiao Long glanced at his sister, then glanced back at me, and uttered the most beautiful words I'd heard all night. You two keep vibing. I'm heading back home. And just like that, he actually left. He just walked away. No psycho-jealous outburst, no threats to gut me alive, and zero interrogation about why I was alone in the dark with his precious sister. The old Xiao Long would have literally stabbed me just for breathing in her general direction. Sister Chin watched him walk off with total wonder in her eyes. He's honestly changed so much. Before, if any guy so much as looked at me, he would completely lose his mind. But now he just... She trailed off, locking eyes with me, with a look that I couldn't quite decode. So, I smoothly stepped up behind her, and wrapped my arms tightly around her waist. She let out a sharp yelp and went as stiff as a wooden plank. What do you think you're doing? Let go. I released her with a smirk. Sister Chin, you won't take my money, and you won't take my body. What exactly do you want from me, huh? Her ears instantly flushed so red they could have glowed in the dark. She swung around and playfully slapped my face. Not hard enough to actually hurt, but just enough to express the fully radiating pure, chaotic panic. She feigned a sharp hiss like an absolute Sundra cat. Try a stunt like that again, and I'm literally going to end you, promise. Hey, I'm right here if you want to try. I teased. That did it. She literally sprinted away from me, giggling and blushing furiously, completely unable to handle a single second of my teasing. At the village edge, she grabbed my hand one last time, instantly shifting to serious mode. Playtime's over. You're carrying a massive bag right now, and the entire village knows you're loaded. Watch your back. I nodded. She was 100% right. Silver always draws eyes, and too much clout always brings trouble. She promised to link up with me tomorrow, then melted right into the shadows. I started heading home, but a sudden gut feeling made me freeze and look back. And yep, there she was, standing under the moonlight, keeping watch to make sure I made it back in one piece. It was just like how she tracked me up the mountain, and how she clutched up out of nowhere to snipe that tiger right off my face, always low-key guarding me from the shadows. Realizing she'd been spotted, she flashed a subtle smile and waved me toward my door. I knocked, and G instantly opened up, taking my crossbow with a sleepy, gentle smile, and pulling me inside. The door clicked shut. The crazy night was finally over, but out in the dark. Sister Jean still stood there, staring at my house for a few lingering moments. She whispered something completely lost to the wind, then turned to disappear into the night, cooking up a secret master plan for tomorrow that I wouldn't see coming in a million years. The next morning, I woke up to my wife aggressively scrubbing pots, like she was trying to qualify for the Olympic dishwashing squad. I sneakily crept up behind her and locked her in a tight hug around her waist. She let out a cute squeak as I buried my face in her neck, mumbling about how amazing she smelled. Her face instantly flushed tomato red, and she told me to stop playing around, since she was in the middle of making breakfast. No more cheap porridge, I declared. From this moment on, we're eating premium rice. Nothing but big, fluffy white rice. 3 meals a day. We are officially living large. She was stressing, thinking it was way too extra, but I had to remind her, we've got enough cold hard silver stashed under our bed to flex on. This entire village twice over. Hearing that, she just nodded and swapped to the premium rice, without missing a beat. Honestly, I absolutely love how fast this woman upgrades her lifestyle the second she gets a taste of that bag. And let me tell you, breakfast was an absolute feast. We're talking 2 massive, overflowing bowls of rice, a mountain of savory salted wild boar, and an entire roasted rabbit leg. Turns out, Jia had been low-key salt-curing all my hunting kills, straight up turning our rundown shack into a certified medieval deli. It wasn't Michelin star gourmet, but it was pure fuel. For a guy who had literally just deleted 5 grown men, clapped 4 apex predators, and completely wrecked his wife's ability to walk straight, all within a single 24-hour grind. Anyway, back at the blacksmith shop, the chaotic energy had dialed down. A few villagers were putting in work, while others were just spilling tea and gossiping in the corners. The initial panic was officially fading out. Xiao Wu spotted me first, and her entire face lit up like a neon sign. I casually threw my hands on her shoulders, and she instantly caught a vibe, trembling a little, as a deep blush crept across her face. I just asked if she'd eaten breakfast yet. She said yeah. Totally normal brother-in-law behavior. Nothing sus at all, let's keep it moving. But right then, Linger walked out, and my brain completely short-circuited. She was rocking this white top and fitted blue pants that somehow, against all odds, turned a basic blacksmith outfit into a straight-up high-fashion runway look. Her waist looked impossibly snatched. Her assets were definitely defying gravity, and the visual damage was so lethal it felt like the devs had custom-designed this woman, specifically to make men lose focus and walk headfirst into brick walls. Without a word, she grabbed me, dragged me into the back room, and slammed the door. Sitting there in perfect, neat rows were 10 finished repeating crossbows, their metallic frames gleaming ominously in the dim lighting. I picked one up to give it a proper inspection. The mechanism was smooth as butter, the joints were flawlessly flush, and the bowstring was ridiculously tight and responsive. This was literal master-tier craftsmanship. This teenage girl was casually mass-producing military-grade hardware. That would make Imperial elite. Armorers weep tears of absolute envy. These are insane, Linger, I breathed out. Her expression immediately turned dead serious. The moment we wipe out those bandits, you need to completely destroy these things, or at the very least, bury them where no one will ever find them. If these basic villagers get their hands on rapid-fire repeating crossbows, they'll hunt these mountains entirely empty within a month. Because if the government catches wind that we've been mass-producing military-grade gear, our heads are literally on the chopping block. Smart move. I told her we'd set up a secret armory instead, and she agreed that scrapping them would be a total waste. That's when I noticed a bead of sweat trickling down her forehead, gliding past her pale cheek and dropping right onto her collarbone. My hand moved completely on instinct before my brain could even stop me. Reaching out, I gently wiped the sweat away with my thumb. She completely froze, blushing a deep crimson, and stammered that she could have done that herself. I immediately grabbed her hands to apologize, only to realize her palms were covered in brutal blisters, completely raw, painful, swollen welts from days of non-stop hammering, grinding and forging at the anvil. This girl had been working herself to the bone, bleeding out just to supply weapons for my war, and she hadn't complained even once. Not a single time. Something inside me just snapped. I pulled her into a tight, protective hug. Linger. Thank you for everything. She went absolutely rigid in my arms, her heart hammering against my chest so wildly that I could count every single beat. Her face was radiating pure, intense heat. I'm totally fine, you dummy. You don't need to worry about me, she huffed, trying to squirm away. But I just held her tighter, making her let out an adorable, muffled squeak. Her entire body was practically vibrating from pure embarrassment, mixed with a strange emotion she probably couldn't even name yet.